your restaurant pet peeves, but it turns out we, as customers, are no angels. Today, we're going to ask you about what diner behaviors drive you batty. Guests ghosting on their table reservations, under-tippers, and constant complainers. It's all on the table next on the 11 a.m. hour of BPR on GBH and NEPM. Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. The Israeli Security Cabinet is meeting today. It will decide whether to once again expand its military offensive in Gaza, targeting Hamas. NPR's Aya Batrawi reports.
Israeli media say Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is weighing the possibility of a full military occupation of the Gaza Strip. The UN says already nearly 90% of Gaza is under displacement orders with, quote, no safe place for people to go. Netanyahu's office says he's convening the Security Cabinet to direct the military on how to achieve the objectives of releasing hostages and ensuring that, quote, Gaza will never again threaten Israel. The nearly 2-year-long war has killed tens of thousands of Palestinians in Gaza. Polls show Israelis are divided over the war. Many want Israel to occupy Gaza and expel Palestinians from it. Yet there are growing calls in Israel demanding Netanyahu end the war, including from among hundreds of former generals and top security officials. Aya Batrawi, NPR News.
President Trump's new tariffs have taken effect overnight. These tariffs apply to scores of goods imported from other nations. Tariffs are the taxes the U.S. is applying to the goods. Earlier today, NPR incorrectly stated that tariffs are paid by the other nations. In actuality, economists expect companies to charge higher prices to U.S. consumers for these imported goods. India's prime minister is responding with defiance to President Trump's threat of new tariffs. Trump is accusing India of helping Russia pay for its invasion of Ukraine by buying cheap Russian oil. NPR's Dia Hadid reports from Mumbai.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi said he'd never stop defending Indians. He says, I know I will personally have to pay a heavy price for this, but I'm ready for it. India is already on a 25% tariff rate, and it will hit 50% later this month if Trump goes through with his threat. He wants India to stop buying oil from Russia. Last year, India bought more than $47 billion worth. Indian officials note the US itself imported more than $3 billion worth of goods and services from Russia. Analysts say India is vulnerable to Trump's pressure because New Delhi is keen to wrap up a trade deal. Dia Hadid, NPR News, Mumbai.
Authorities at Fort Stewart, Georgia, say 5 U.S. soldiers injured in an on-base shooting yesterday are expected to recover. Military authorities have arrested the soldier accused in the attack. The Secretary of the Army, Dan Driscoll, visited the base today and praised the soldiers who stopped the attack.
One of the soldiers tackled the person, so just think about this. They were unarmed and ran at and tackled an armed person who they knew was actively shooting their fellow soldiers.
Driscoll has awarded the Meritorious Service Medal to 6 soldiers who were involved in the incident. You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Good morning from the GBH newsroom in Boston. I'm Soraya Wintersmith. Governor Maura Healey has okayed a pay raise for court-appointed attorneys, but it's not yet clear if it'll be enough to end their months-long work stoppage. The private attorneys, known as bar advocates, have been demanding a substantial raise, saying the current rate of $65 an hour is much less than what neighboring states pay. Under the new law, they'll get a $20 increase over the next 2 years, below what they've called for. Sean Delaney is one of the work stoppage leaders. He says he's already heard from 5 bar advocates who've either applied or accepted to practice in other states.
Lawyers want to do this work because they have a passion for it, and they're going to do this work elsewhere where they can make a wage that's fair and reasonable.
Some bar advocates are also concerned about language in the new law that says a refusal to take cases could be an antitrust violation. In sports, the Red Sox winning streak was snapped. They lost to the Royals last night 7-3. They now head to the West Coast to play the Padres in San Diego tomorrow. And Tom Brady is getting a statue from the Patriots tomorrow. That's happening just before the preseason game against the Washington Commanders. The forecast looks like clouds giving way to sunshine and temperatures touching 80 today. Then later tonight, clear and cool with lows near 60. It's partly cloudy and 72 right now in Boston. You're listening to GBH News. Boston Public Radio is up next. And for more original reporting, visit gbhnews.org.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Joyce Foundation, committed to advancing racial equity and economic mobility for the next generation in the Great Lakes region. Learn more at joycefdn.org. This is NPR.
Good morning. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM. I'm Jim Browdy. Marjorie is off. Sitting in is Sue O'Connell from NBC 10 Boston. Hey, Sue, how are you?
Good day, Jim.
Good day to you, too. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow, but we are off all of next week for summer vacation. We will be airing best of shows. We think they're best of anyway, from 11 to 2. And most importantly, to refund your tickets to the library, email Marjorie directly. We're here now via Zoom as political analyst Chuck Todd. Chuck's the former moderator of NBC's Meet the Press and host of a brand new show, Sunday Night with Chuck Todd, on the platform Noosphere, N-O-O-Sphere. Also host of the Chuck Toddcast. You can find it at chucktoddcast.com or youtube.com at the Chuck Toddcast. Hey there, Chuck Todd.
How you doing, guys? So what kind of cut do I get for being so involved with all the best ofs next week? Any sort of cut?
Well, you'll refer to your contract and you'll see that zero.
I'll see very clearly,
Or you can,
very carefully.
You can email Marjorie directly, too.
Right. Yeah. Right. I think Sue and I get compensated the same.
Exactly. See, finally, I finally am equal to you. It worked out fine. All right, Chuck, we have a plethora, as our SAT words would tell us, of topics to speak with you about, and I want you to write this down. We want you to answer at the end with, how does this end?
Oh, I like
That's our question we have for you for every single topic. Let's start in Texas as this continues. These lawmakers have left the state. The redistricting issue that Trump is forcing forward. Jim and I have been talking about this a lot, obviously. I keep getting confused about what could actually happen to the state lawmakers who have left, if they really can be arrested by the FBI, if they had stayed in the state, what would happen? What's the current status of their status? And then again, when you're done, how does it end?
So it's very interesting if you notice the wording of what John Cornyn said about the FBI, that they can be used to track them down. Mm-hmm. They didn't say to detain them and return them.
Right.
So I don't know how, the FBI has any jurisdiction or how you compel somebody to do that per se. So on that front. Look, I think if you want to know how it ends, you sort of have to remember the last time they did this, which was about 10 years ago. And essentially, they did successfully stop one special session, but then Abbott immediately called another one, and they sort of ran out of steam. And I think that's the question, right? How, sometimes in these standoffs, are you willing to stick it out, right? Are you willing to sort of draw this out? And so we'll see if they run out the clock on this special session. Does it immediately create another one? But I do think a bigger thing that has happened here is that I do think the MAGA message machine has successfully gotten the base elected Republicans in other red states to find their way to do this. And, while I think Texas could end up being what some call a dummy mander, meaning, they could try to find 5 seats, put somebody else in jeopardy in doing it, and end up sort of in a break even, which is I think at best they're going to get 1 if all of this goes through the way they want it to go through. But if they're able to redistrict in Nebraska, Indiana, and Missouri, well, that is 3 or 4 more districts, and they could sort of do a chip here and a chip there. And then in reverse, what Gavin Newsom wants to do in California, Arnold Schwarzenegger has said he's going to campaign against it if it's put on the ballot, because this was Arnold Schwarzenegger's, creating the independent commissions was one of his, sort of legacy projects that he successfully got passed in California. So, and I don't know if that's great politics for Gavin. And Arnold's got his own sort of constituency that's unique. So I still think that this is not going to have the impact Republicans think it does, because in a midterm election, the Trump voter doesn't always show up. Like, if they really wanted to maximize their ability to win House seats, doing it in a presidential year would be more effective than trying to do it in a midterm year. So I do think their potential advantages are a bit muted, but there's definitely more Republican seats to create than there are Democratic seats if everybody's legislature is compliant.
Chuck, before we get to our next how will it end, you partially answered a question I was about to broach with you, which was, will the Democrats follow through on their threats, or is this just hot air again? You did a thing the other day talking about how the Democrats still don't quite get it, still don't know how to fight, because they still haven't done an honest assessment of their losing. Could you just expand that just for a second?
Well, look, I don't think they know why are they unpopular, right? And I mean, right? They've not. I mean, they're at record lows. You pick your poll, right? They're at record lows of favorability, and I do think it's crucial for them to understand why. And more importantly, stop worrying about what people that have remained Democrats are. I think that the real autopsy ought to be among those who voted Democrat in 20 and didn't in 24. Why? How did you lose them? Go figure that out. That's the decider. They decide this election, and I don't, instead, I kind of think you see the party going, hey, look, all the energy's on the left in the primary. Okay, but is that why you lost the middle in 24? Right? You need to figure that out. And they haven't, and I don't think they're incentivized to, because I think there's an ideological disagreement inside the party about this. Well, I don't think they want to know the answer. I really don't. I think the party operatives are further to the left than the American electorate, and I think that's a problem.
So when the American electorate said in the poll the other day, was it a Gallup poll, that the most popular two politicians in America are Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders? How does that fit your thesis there, Chuck Todd?
I hear you. No, I mean, and they are, and they're clean. They're very popular on the left. There's no doubt about it. But
that wasn't just a vote of the left. That was a poll.
I understand that. It's show me where progressive politics have won in swing states.
Is New York City a swing state? I can't remember. Is that a swing state?
We'll wait. We'll just sit quietly.
We're talking to Chuck Todd.
All right, Chuck. The Trump administration and Donald Trump is desperately trying to rope-a-dope and look over here and see the shiny thing to keep the attention off the Epstein files, which, in my opinion, is just dogging him. Is going to continue to dog him. What's your take on if this is actually going to do any real political damage to him? I mean, and by I mean, who knows what this is, but he isn't really able, at least in my opinion, to shake this off the way he's shaken other things off. And I think partially because when he holds the shiny thing up, some of his defenders are not taking that and running with it. They're sticking with the Epstein files.
You're also supposed to say, and how does it end,
and how does it end, Chuck?
How does it end,
How
Chuck?
does it end, Chuck?
Well, with Epstein, here's what I think what makes it an effective hit by Democrats right now is that it rattles him. Right. And so, he makes mistakes. I don't think this is the issue that brings him down. Right. I believe that if you're wondering, if you think of Trump's support as a Jenga tower and you think, what's the piece you pull? I think if you pull Epstein, it doesn't collapse. I think if you pull the economy, it collapses. Right. So I still think that his collapse comes in about 6 to 9 months when people really hate the cost of goods and start to really realize that Donald Trump raised our taxes, right? It has not fully been baked in yet. I'm still just sort of, I'm a bit disoriented that Republicans are celebrating tax hikes this morning. It's the craziest thing. We're
talking tariffs is what you're talking about, obviously.
But they're consumer tax hikes.
Of course,
it's
I agree.
Adding 5 to 10% sales tax, it's as if a new 15% sales tax has been applied to every good in America.
And also, I was just up in Camden, Maine, and we in New England are beginning to appreciate our Canadian friends and how much money they spend.
Yeah, where
friends
are they?
that just came from Cape Cod, and they're like, it's desolate. I interacted with a couple of farmers up in Maine who had been up since 4 picking in the fields so they could get to the farmers market. So the tariff isn't just on the goods; it's also on the tourism. And it was this ironic, weird exchange I had with these farmers because right behind them was a house that had a huge Trump banner behind it. So as they're saying to me, I have to pick it. I can't leave it in the fields. I have to come to a Tuesday farmers market because if we don't, we can't sell it. And then under the banner of Trump behind them. And it was heartbreaking to me.
Yeah. But to go back on Epstein, look, I don't think we're ever, we're not going to see anything on this, but I think this is one of those that makes him do stupid things, makes him make bad decisions. There's certain, if you're playing the political jujitsu here, right? Is the Epstein going to swing a vote? I don't know if it swings a vote, but if it makes your opponent make mistakes, then it's a worthwhile hit, right? It's more almost like a psychological hit. And this one he loses his mind on it, right? It's one of those where he gets a bit irrational and he makes really bad decisions, and he seems to rattle the people around him. I think it has really exposed how the Department of Justice and the FBI have become arms of a political operation, and I think that's one of those. It's eroding support. It's not gonna be immediate, but I do think with swing voters that has incremental impact on that.
Can I intellectually totally agree with your analysis of the ultimate impact of the Epstein thing, with one huge however. I think it's fair to say that there's only one person on the planet that Donald Trump cares about, and it's him. And I include his kids. I include everybody in his orbit. Nobody matters except himself. And if it turns out that he's creating such intra-MAGA chaos and concern by refusal to release the so-called Epstein files, the only possible reason he could be refusing to do it, in my estimation, is because there's something in there that is very bad for him. It may not be that he did the ultimate horrible thing, but if there was not something horrible about Trump himself, even if it brought down his whole damn cabinet, why wouldn't he release him?
No, this goes back to the old Watergate, right? The cover-up's worse than the crime. I mean, he had a plausible way to explain his relationship with Epstein. Yeah, we were close friends, and we got in a dispute, and I didn't like the way he treated some of my staff, and I kicked him out. Do we believe that that's really the story? No, I don't believe that that's really the story. But he had a story, and he didn't stick to it, right? He's trying to pretend he never really had a relationship with Epstein, or it was so far away. He over-denied, right? And I know why. Because Epstein is bigger than Epstein, right? Epstein is this symbolic sort of thing for the MAGA right that is more MAGA than it is Trump. In that, they're very invested in this idea that the elites aren't just separate from working class America, that they eat babies, right? That they're pedophiles and they're weird and they're, that it's, Gomorrah, whatever, right? It's so they're invested in the weird. They're invested in this bigger conspiracy. And if Trump admits he's on the side of the elites, which being friends with Epstein does, I think that's his fear, that it's that portion of his base that he doesn't control. Remember, he adopted, there's two pieces of the MAGA base. One is the cult of Trump, but there's another that was QAnon, okay? And that was with the Ron Paul crowd, the real fringy right-wing crowd out there that loved the Pauls. That was Ron Paul's base of support in 12, which was a fairly substantial number of Republicans, enough that, who finished second in delegates to Mitt Romney in 2012? Not Rick Santorum, it was Ron Paul. And Rand Paul was one of the co-front runners until Donald Trump came in and took all of his supporters first. But he had the fringe, and those guys are more invested in the conspiracy than they are Trump. And I think that was a piece of the base he acquired. This is QAnon. This is Mike Flynn and the crazy there, right? Where Mike Flynn even said, hey, you got to understand, because Flynn has learned how to grift off these people himself. So it is, I think that people don't fully understand the significance for a large minority chunk, but a significant chunk of the MAGA base so invested in the conspiracy theory of Epstein that Trump, even supporting Trump, doesn't get prioritized over the Epstein conspiracy theory.
And we've mentioned a lot of times, Marjorie and I went at the first Trump inauguration when we were in D.C., we went to Comet Ping Pong Pizza, which is where in the basement, allegedly, Hillary Clinton and was a Podesta, or campaign guy.
And then you couldn't find the
pedophile
basement,
ring.
No
exactly.
basement.
So it goes way back. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's just the other thing about Trump and this Epstein stuff, to Chuck's point, is that he usually comes right out and tells you what he's doing, right? So he's not hiding. I'm a rich guy, I do this. I've got crypto, I do this. And this time he's not, which I think to both of your points, it's not like he's hiding something major, but the fact that it appears that he's not just saying, this is who I am, I can do what I want, really feeds into the QAnon
Let me throw out a
conspiracy.
thesis that Epstein did recruit at Mar-a-Lago, and Trump didn't get mad about it most of the time. And he was just upset at one person or whatever it was, right? Like that could be what's in the files, and that's what he's really worried that basically, look, I think we all know, I don't believe Donald Trump behaved like Prince Andrew. I don't. I think if he did, we'd know. I think people would come out and want to say it. There'd be people who were abused by him coming out and saying it. Whether they were believed or not is another story. But look at all the people that have come out and said what they've said about Prince Andrew. So, but that doesn't mean Trump didn't look the other way and knew what was going on, right? That didn't mean Alan Dershowitz looked the other way and knew what was going on. That didn't mean Bill Clinton might not have had a hint of what was going on and looked the other way. And I think to me, that's the elite crime about Epstein, is that there were a lot of people that knew this guy was kind of was up to something really disgusting and gross. And because he was rich, they looked the other way.
So our final how does it end is apparently there's going to be a Putin Trump meeting, maybe even a Zelensky-Putin call. Is Donald Trump able to end this thing?
The fact that Putin is willing to do this, I think Putin is looking for an exit ramp. Now, he's still looking for an exit ramp on his terms. So, he may get his ceasefire. I don't know if it ends it. Right, if you told me he got a temporary ceasefire out of this and then it sort of skirmished back up in a couple of weeks, that wouldn't surprise me. But look, Putin can't afford to keep this going, especially since, one of his most important military partners was Iran, and Iran's been set back a lot when it comes to, they've been basically the drone manufacturer for the Russians here. So he is a little bit boxed in, and as much grief as we all give Trump on the tariffs, what Trump is doing with India is how you should use tariffs, which is you're trying to use it as a way to enforce an isolation on a bad actor in the world community, i.e. Russia, Russian oil, etc. So I think that this has been a serious. I think Putin finally has decided maybe Trump's serious.
Yeah, but China buys more Russian oil than India does, and he's not.
Well, you know how Trump views.
What's that?
You know how Trump views. Trump thinks, Xi and Putin are equals. Everybody else is not.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very exciting. So, how's it end?
Exciting.
Hey, can we go
how does it end? I think I bet you, if we get a ceasefire, there'll be new elections. Zelensky probably won't run, and we'll get new leadership. And there's probably a bloodless coup that's attempted again by the Russians.
Yeah, I don't think there'll ever be another Zelensky. I mean, he will go down in history as one courageous soul. Before you go, we only have a minute or two left. Getting back to the Epstein thing, I'm thinking as we're talking, the striking thing about yesterday's press conference where Trump said BS and it's a hoax. And I love when he said he's the hoax when he's in the room with people, including himself and Vance, who said that everything had to be released until they had an opportunity to release this. But he's attempting to say tariffs great. Here's the guy I used to call Tim Apple, whose actual name is Tim Cook. He's going to invest $100 billion. Nobody cares about the $100 billion. All they care about is Epstein. He's going to have a phone call with Putin. He's going to declare, I'm ready for my Nobel Prize delivery. Second question is, when are you going to release the Epstein files? And you can see there's a point at which his head is going to come off, which might be really damaging to this presidency.
That's what I write. That's why I'm like, it's an indirect. Again, I don't think Epstein moves voters, but it rattles him, and that's why it is probably worth the effort. Politics ain't beanbag, but it does rattle him, and then that's when he can make unforced errors.
All right, Chuck Todd, we will Venmo you your money for next week for the best of, and we'll be in touch with your agent about perhaps a spinoff,
or perhaps not.
Or you don't operate this way. Maybe in 2 weeks I own the show.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of the month.
Checks in the mail.
Bye,
good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Chuck Todd. Do you agree with? Before we take a break, do you agree with Chuck that the Epstein thing doesn't ultimately? It's not.
Well, I think to his point, I think it's
indirect.
It's indirectly. He can't shake it. It's like gum on his shoe. He's not going to be able to get rid of it. And to Chuck's point as well, these conspiracy people, they don't want the conspiracy. All conspiracies, they don't want them solved. They want them to continue. So that's it. Any answer he gives is that. So thanks to political analyst Chuck Todd, the host of the Chuck Toddcast. You can find it at thechucktoddcast.com or youtube.com at the Chuck Toddcast. He's also the host of Sunday Night with Chuck Todd on the Newsphere platform. Coming up after this quick break, we're going to talk to you, opening the phone lines and text lines about the cardinal sins of restaurant diners this time. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Marjorie Egan. He is Jim Browdy. You are listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, Christine Baranski, the Tony and Emmy Award-winning actress and singer with a reputation for playing steely characters with searing wit, joins us ahead of the season finale of HBO's The Gilded Age, where she stars as the matriarch's matriarch, Agnes Van Ryn. Plus, novelist and musician John Darnielle of the Mountain Goats. He's here ahead of their Worcester show. That and more today on The Culture Show on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And MIT Sloan Executive Education, offering 2 to 3 day courses and executive certificates for professionals seeking cutting-edge business insights on innovation, cybersecurity, AI, and more. Info at executive.mit.edu. And GM Roth Design Remodeling. Dreams delivered. With custom kitchens, bathrooms, and additions. Serving New England for over 39 years. Learn more at gmroth.com.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. I'm Jim Browdy. Meeting Maven, NBC 10, Sue O'Connell is sitting in for Marjorie. Streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow, and as I said, the whole team is off all next week. We'll have best of shows. So in addition to writing a check to Chuck Todd, I think we have to send one to Kara Baskin. Last week, we spent some time talking about essentially the sins of some restaurants. Menus you have to access via QR codes. Servers who say things like, are you still working on that? That sort of deal. That was all inspired, as I said, by a column in the Globe by Kara Baskin. Well, she has a follow-up tackling the cardinal sins, not of restaurateurs and servers, but of us, the patrons. Things like ghosting after you've made a reservation. Assuming that any table you see where people aren't sitting is fair game to just sit at. Or, and this is the one where I am so with her, writing scathing reviews on Yelp rather than just talking to the people at the restaurant when you're unhappy, rather than trying to screw their whole business. And, of course, letting your kids run wild unattended while you gorge yourself on all-you-can-eat shrimp. So give us a call or a text at 877-301-8970. If you're somebody who works in a restaurant or has worked in restaurants, which almost all of us... Have you ever worked in a restaurant?
I have. I worked at Friendly's.
Oh, you did? Oh, of course you did. All of us have. What would make your list of the 8 deadly sins of customers? It could be asking your waiter to split the check 8 ways, or when someone makes a fuss after you ask to have just a few of their fries. I've done that. And are you someone who goes out to eat a lot, realizing you might be guilty of 1 or 2 of these? I'll read a few more in a minute. Now's your chance to atone at 877-301-8970. Can I say the one thing that I am so with Kara Baskin on is this final one, critique in person, not online. South End restaurateur Jack Barty, Beehive and Cosmica. Is that how you say it, Cosmica?
Yeah.
I hope so. Okay.
I think so.
Puts it more bluntly, if you don't like a place, don't go back. Why try to hurt the people who work there, servers, cooks, dishwashers, just trying to make a living? Or as Kara says in her piece, talk to the server, say, is the manager here. Talk to the manager, complain if you felt you were treated unfairly or the food was no good or whatever. But when you do one of those Yelp things, you have a chance of really destroying a business. And some of them are so outrageously vicious.
Yeah.
It was a meal.
I've done a couple of Yelp reviews.
And what provoked it?
Well, one was a reopening of one of our favorite restaurants in a town that will go unnamed that had heralded it that it was going to be exactly the same as it was menu-wise, and it was possibly the worst meal I have ever had in my entire life as well. We ordered a bunch of appetizers. My daughter's meal, which she would get every time there, was totally bad.
As Barty says, don't go back.
Well, we didn't, except it was like this big hype machine. And as a fellow next to us who was we didn't know him, but he called the manager over and said, "What did I order?" And they said, "Swordfish." And he said, "Nothing on this plate looks, tastes, or resembles swordfish in any way." So it kind of became a thing. It was not like a mom and pop's type of little tiny thing. So this one time I did that. But I have sent emails to people because sometimes, the person you want to, you don't want to talk to people who are not in charge of it, or maybe they don't want to bring. But as a business owner, I do say as well, tell us what your complaint is, bring it to us, and we'll see what we can fix.
You know what's also not on our list, I assume it was conscious, is the most obvious thing, is crappy tipping. Which I think is really prevalent. So we want to know, again, if you work in a restaurant or have worked at a restaurant, what would you put on the list of the worst sins of customers? And we want you to be honest. If you are a customer, which obviously you are.
We all are.
What's the thing you've done that you regret? You know who the worst customer in a restaurant, I think, in the history of the Republic was? My father. My father would send back... I don't think for about 3 or 4 years, I've said this before, he made a lot of money. He was, making a decent living most of his life, but 3 or 4 years, he invented whatever. And he made a lot of money. And so we'd go out to eat a lot in New York City. My parents were divorced. He'd moved to New York, etc. I don't think I ever saw him not send back the first bottle of wine just to show what a big shot he was. Yeah. It is so offensive. It is just and that was the least. Crappy tips. I mean, real whatever. In any case, 877-301-8970. Let's go to Ron in Seabrook. You're first on the Customer Cardinal Sin Hour here on BPR. Hi.
Hi. Well, I'm not sure whether this will be anyone else's number one.
I'll decide. Go ahead.
All right. I have an objection to people that let their noise level climb up out
That's
of
a good
control.
one. That's a good one.
A party of 4 sitting next to you, one person might have a voice that cuts like a buzzsaw, and they just get louder and louder and louder, and before you know it, you can't hear yourself think, never mind speak to the person you're with, I
think it's a good one, don't you?
No, I do, and I think Ron is correct in that sometimes when some people go out, they feel like all the etiquette is because you're paying for a meal and you're out at a restaurant and you can go and you can. The other part of that too is those people often linger for a long time at the table.
That's right.
Well past, I want to have my dessert. I don't want to be rushed, which I totally support. But then the lingering when they need to turn the table. It's a business. It's not, this isn't just your living room.
Ron, we're with you, apparently. Thanks for the call. 877-301-8970. The first on our list, the thing I mentioned, ghosting, too. You make a reservation, and you're essentially taking up a table for 4 people in a restaurant that may be packed that night, and a server's got that assignment, and you don't show up. Why would you not
let them know? Just
even
let them
call?
know.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, what is wrong? And that's caused a lot of restaurants to require you to do a deposit, which I don't like, but I understand it's necessary. Okay, where do you want to go?
Let's get Rachel quickly. Rachel, you're calling from Sutton.
You have 45 seconds, Rachel.
Go.
Hi.
Okay, hi. Yeah,
Hi.
first time call. Restaurant business for years, and one of my biggest pet peeves were typically older generation, but not necessarily always, thought that you should, on a full meal bill, tip only on the food and not on the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a restaurant, as a server, you had to tip out the bar at the end of your shift, and you didn't receive the money from the tips from, you are serving the drinks and you're, getting the order right and all that. You have part in it. I just thought that.
Rachel, did you ever politely say,
Yeah.
did you ever politely say to a customer exactly what you're saying to us about their tip, or no?
No, too shy.
All right,
Yeah,
well, we're
it's
telling
hard.
them now. We're telling them now.
Hey, make your second call soon, Rachel. Well, thank you so much. That's a good one, by the way. That's a really important one. I think older people do that.
They do that. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, but we're going to take more of your calls and texts next. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Marjorie. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM and streaming on youtube.com/GBH News.
Pretty much everywhere, summer equals barbecue. Grill masters across the globe tell us how to keep the taste authentic.
I would have to say that, if you really want the best, either use this recipe or come to Hong Kong.
That's a very diplomatic way of putting it, I gotta say. Get fired up with us for barbecue. That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you. And the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority, helping families overcome the college planning stress. Committed to providing trusted guidance with calculators, step-by-step videos, and more. Details at mefa.org. And Blythewald, with big, beautiful bamboo birds. 6 sculptures in the gardens, 15 to 30 feet tall, by artist duo The Mythmakers. Blythewald.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Jim Browdy, Sue O'Connell sitting in for Marjorie. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow. No library next week. In fact, no live shows next week. It's all best of, as our whole team's on vacation. If you're just tuning in, we are channeling Kara Baskin's column in the Boston Globe, in which she writes about the cardinal sins, in her case, 8 cardinal sins of customers at restaurants. You can join the conversation at 877-301-8970. Anonymous texter says, mine is people who blow their noses at the table. That's bad enough.
Yep.
And then use their napkin to roto-rooter their nostrils.
How about picking your teeth with a piece of floss at the table?
Let's not.
That has happened around me and with people I'm with. I think you texted in, Jim. The cardinal sin is existing. I want the restaurant to myself. Get out. There you go. That's a good one. Okay.
Where do we go?
Let's talk to Nick in Hartford. Hey, Nick, what's on your mind?
Hey there.
Hi there.
So I've mentioned on the show before my various experiences working in cafes and like small delis in Boston in previous years. And I have to say, not that I was a terrible customer before, but it has made me totally appreciate the work that goes on in these places and made me tip double what I would have before and treat everyone with the utmost kindness, because customers truly are the worst. Not always the restaurant.
That's a good
Nick, what's a sin you were committing that you didn't know was a sin? And then when you were like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how terrible this feels to have happened to me or around me.
So mainly, it's more having watched family members or people that I happen to be dining with kind of speak rudely. One of the worst things is that my mother's ex-husband, thank God, if he had a bad meal and the waiter would come over and say, "How was your meal?" Let's say he didn't enjoy it. He thought it was, just telling it like it is or whatever people say, to just say it was awful. So this poor person who is working a hard shift, doing their best, and what the hell are they going to do about it? So they didn't cook the meal for him. It was just that sort of behavior. Or for me personally, getting to a restaurant and making sure I've actually looked at the menu ahead of time or done a little bit of research just to know what I'm getting myself into as far as what their menu offers. Because some of the most frustrating experiences I've ever had are people that will come into a place and demand something that isn't there or isn't what they had in their mind when they entered the door. And it's the only time I've ever yelled at someone in my professional life is when someone did that to me when I was working at the JP Licks in Jamaica Plain.
Boy, let me tell you, Nick, that was one extraordinary phone call. By the way, I think your mother may have been married to my father. It's a small possibility. Nick, thank you for the call. Judy and Danvers text, diners, I have seen this. Yeah. And I've been with people who innocently, I think, attempted to do this. Diners using gift cards or getting a meal comped who only tip on what they paid. Those servers get stiffed, usually after putting up with picky customers. Meaning if you have a $100 gift card and the meal's $2.20, you only tip on the $1.20. Or if the restaurant is nice enough to give you a free dish, it's worth $20, you should add that. I mean, that they still did the work to get you the $20 thing, and you got it for free, and it drives me nuts.
This also comes under the rule that if you really can't afford to do it, then don't go out. Which is, people have talked to me about the gift card situation or about getting, as you said, a meal sent, an appetizer sent over. And they're like, well, I don't want to tip. I said, well, this is the world that we are in right now. So you can make choices about what you're spending on,
But there's also no defense for that. Yeah. They're providing the same level of service as if you paid the $100 that you're getting. I mean, it's ridiculous. I agree. Joanne from New Bedford also cites one that we haven't mentioned. I don't think we've mentioned that Kara has, but unfortunately, here it is. It's blocked. Our screen is screwed up. Sorry, Raquel, I'll get back to it. Raquel in Cape Cod, welcome. Hi, Raquel.
Hi, I was a waitress many years ago, and I was trained that you can never ask somebody to leave you a tip, and if they don't leave you a good tip, you never say anything. So years ago, I was waitressing in Woods Hole, and this 5-top sat down, 5 people, and they left me zilch. And so I innocently went up to them as they walked out the door on the street, and I said, excuse me, I said, I just need to understand, did I do something wrong because you didn't leave me a tip? And that's an indicator that maybe my service wasn't good. And the wife, who was the perpetrator, was so embarrassed. The husband just threw $20 my way. But that is a way for, I finally found the way to deal with that, which didn't happen much because I was a good waitress. But some people are just sleazy.
Yeah. Jim, have you ever gone back and left a tip when someone has paid and left a bad tip?
With my father all the time.
Yeah,
and
I've done that.
He's rolling in dough. I had nothing. I was a law student or something in New York City. I've done that. Raquel, I'm going to tell you a story in response to yours that I know nobody's going to believe. I've told it before. I'm raising my right hand on my children. When I was a busboy and waiter in the Catskills, the captains to whom we reported were so loyal to the busboys and the waitress, all waitresses actually, I think, were so loyal that if you ever wronged by a customer, it's a true story. I had not a 5-top, but an 8-top. 8 customers there for a weekend who their final request was, can we take some candy with us, which we always did with a customer if they wanted. And they didn't want candy. They wanted like a wheelbarrow worth of candy. And I kept bringing it. Finally, I did it because it was the end of a weekend. They left me nothing. I go to the captain and say, they didn't give me anything. And the captain says, go for it. And what I did as they left the dining room with maybe 1,500 people at Grossinger's in the Catskills, I got a bucket of candy and I tossed pieces of candy at the couple who were leading it, hitting them in the back of that, on my honor. And it was one of the most satisfying experiences. So I was not quite as classy as you, but I got a lot of satisfaction. Raquel, thank you very much.
Good job, Raquel.
For your call. That New Bedford thing, the text has disappeared, was talking about tripping over kids.
Yeah, like you let your kids run playground.
it's like a playground. And Karen mentions that too.
Yes.
It's appalling.
And as the texter said, they'd be the first to sue the restaurant
Exactly.
if something happened to their precious children while they're busy practically tripping. Another texter sent about stacking the dishes on the table to help clear, which the waiters hate, right?
Yeah.
You don't, unless you absolutely need room to share something, let the servers do their job. They know what they're doing. You're not really helping.
I wonder if one of my daughters is listening right now.
Why does she do that, or do you do that?
She does. Will she be okay with this? Yeah, she'll be okay. She does it because she thinks it's totally
Helpful.
being helpful.
Yeah.
And I have said what you just said, but that doesn't really count in that discussion.
Yes.
In any case, Dan in Merrimack, New Hampshire, we're talking about bad behaviors by customers, inspired by Kara Baskin and the Globe. Hi, Dan.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for taking my call.
It's our pleasure.
First time caller.
Thank you a lot.
Welcome.
So I work in a kitchen and have full view of the customers. Yeah. And one thing that really gets me is when they say an allergy and you take all the precautions. You always do. And then you see them out there snacking from their neighbor's plate. And you know, like, they'll say they can't have wheat. And they'll take a bite of their spouse's burger. And you're just sitting there like shaking your head like this puts a bad name for people who truly have celiac disease.
Right.
And some kitchens stop,
And Dan, you should say what you have to do when there's an allergy like that. Like there's a lot that has to go on in the kitchen when someone states that they have an allergy, right?
Oh yeah, so you can be in the weeds jamming. You'll stop everything you'll do. You change your gloves. You wash your hands. You move over to an area that's safe. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, someone could die.
I understand
right?
that. Wow.
You're taking and so. It can bring your kitchen, especially a small kitchen, to almost a halt while you're dealing with this one customer. And again, do not mind doing it for people with, celiac disease or legitimate allergies. But when you see them cheating,
can I tell you, the attitude in your voice is spectacular, Dan. Thank you for sharing your perspective. Here's another great one I hadn't thought of. Anonymous texter. In my early adult life, I waitressed for about 5 years. My biggest pet peeve is when people come in 10 to 15 minutes before closing and expect a full sit-down meal.
Mm-hmm,
I mean, really, what is wrong with people?
Well, that's a very big question, Jim.
And they see the whole restaurant is empty.
Yeah.
It's only your server standing there. I mean, really, what is wrong with people?
It's a sense of entitlement. I honestly think just sometimes when people go out to restaurants, especially, and I think it's also sometimes in hotels, there's a different level of entitlement and expectation that they bring with them that they can behave in a different way than they would if they were home or in another business. And I having worked, people's food is always such a hot button issue and how you're delivering it and how they feel.
Yeah.
I mean, and both my parents were very, very concerned about etiquette in restaurants and making sure that we understood that the people waiting on us were people, they weren't robots. I sometimes think that I'm not going to send something back because I don't want to make it more difficult for them, and it's really hard sometimes for me to send something back legitimately because I don't want to make their lives worse, even though I'm paying for it.
Speaking of robot, that's another one we didn't mention in Kara's list, where instead of saying, hi, how are you, to the server, you say, Diet Coke, double order fries.
Right.
I mean, so
do you know how many free drinks? We don't drink alcohol when we go out, but my daughter and I get free sodas and free waters all the time because I simply say, hey, hi, what's your name? It's Jim. How you doing, Jim? That's it. We don't have to sit down and have a discussion and hang out, but just acknowledging that they are a human being, and then we get a free round of sodas.
Okay, let's go to Sarah in Concord. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. What's up?
So I'm going to date myself here, but this was in the early 2000s when I was much younger. Used to go out with a large group of friends every week, once a week. And this was back when restaurants used to wheel around the dessert cart.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
I had one of our friends who weighed probably 100 pounds, was a workout fanatic, had no intent of ordering anything for dessert, would always, when the waiter came over and said, "Would you like to see the dessert cart?" "Oh, yes, I would."
Oh,
and then she would have him give detailed descriptions, him or her detailed descriptions of everything on the cart, and then we all just sat there with our hands on our face, waiting for her. After they would ask them, "What would you like to order something?" "Oh, no, thank you." It was so embarrassing, and I felt so bad for the waiter, the waitress, every time she did this.
That is a great and horrible one all at once. That's perfect. Sarah, thanks for sharing that.
Maybe she
the bill kind of thing. Now, what I try to do, and of course, you never know if you're getting an honest answer. If it's splitting in half, I sort of feel that's okay. But I went out to dinner with three other friends a couple of weeks ago, and we asked for 4 checks. Is that? And I did say before I did it, is that
if you do it in advance, I think it's okay.
You mean to say to them in advance?
If you say to the waiter, you're talking about the server, right?
Yeah.
So if you say to the server, when you sit down, we're going to ask for 4 checks or 5 checks or whatever. I think that's okay. I mean, I could stand corrected, but
an upfront thing. That's a very good idea.
Yeah, just make sure that they know that, so they don't have to go back.
Here's a good one. Anonymous texter: friend solves loud talking or cell phone use. Cell phone use drives me out of my mind. As follows: repeat what they say at the same volume. They always stop.
I would totally love doing that. I'm definitely going to do that.
That's another good one.
All right, let's talk to Tamara, who is calling us from the car. Tamara, is that what it is? Tamara?
I think so. Hi, Tamara.
It is. Hi, Jim. Hi. So I moved to New York in the 80s to be an actress, which of course meant I was a waitress. And
of course.
I will tell you what, I think all kids under the age of 10 should be sat in a high chair because other people have mentioned when they run around. But we used to have famous people in the restaurant I worked in all the time. But in particular, one time, these 2 kids that used to come in on a regular basis were running around, and one of them bumped into me and almost knocked my tray over. I almost smacked the kid in the face, but I sternly said, "Stop and go sit down." And he said, "Do you know who my dad is?" And it was Mandy Patinkin. who
I love Mandy Patinkin. Oh, I'm so sad.
And his son, who's grown up to be a fine human being, his son has.
Oh, I don't know his
son.
Yes.
Oh, and if you are watching Mandy now and he's speaking out again about Gaza, he's amazing. I love him. But on that particular instance, he didn't leave me a tip after that.
Mandy.
Oh,
I know, Mandy. How dare. But in other words, I think all children should be in high chairs or sitting and not be allowed to run around because,
it's
you want
dangerous.
to smack them in the head.
It's dangerous.
Tamara, and you want to smack him in the head. And she said, Tamara, who is the most respectful big celebrity ever served?
You know who used to come in? It was funny. Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger.
He's really polite. I've
dating.
Yeah. I've interacted with Alec Baldwin a few times. I just ran into him in Harvard Square once.
Really?
And he was so kind and polite to people coming up to him.
So as long as you're not his daughter.
Shocking. Yeah.
We've all heard the recording of him screaming at his daughter.
Who hasn't?
Wow, that is, and Kim Basinger too.
Yeah.
Well, they were an item.
They were
of
a
course.
thing. They were married.
Hey, Tamara, that was great.
Great call.
Oh, they were? That was
Yeah.
excellent. Thank you very much. This is another good one. Caitlin in Attleboro. My grandmother likes to sneak the restaurant's cutlery into her purse when we go out to eat together. One time a waiter confronted her about it. I've never been more embarrassed.
I had a
You
friend.
didn't finish. Wait, Caitlin, you didn't finish. And what did she do? She said, what did she do? Apology? I didn't know. What? Caitlin, text again, will you, before
I had
you
a friend
go?
who used to do that, used to take a piece of silverware. And there's actually, I think, for a segment in the future, the thing that most cafeterias miss are forks. Like, people take stuff on a regular basis from restaurants and cafeterias.
I mean, even on nice forks, because they need a fork at home?
I have no idea what it is. I think it's
Never taken anything?
No, never.
We've talked to Chris from you there. I've taken a lot of stuff from hotel rooms. And I don't know why I think it's sort of, I shouldn't have said that. Allegedly I have.
Allegedly
or some
you
people
have.
say I have.
No.
I consider that, I don't know why I consider that different.
See, there you go, because you're not at home. This is my point. When you're out in a restaurant or at a hotel, you think you're not at home. She stabbed the waitress with her own cutlery.
That's
obviously.
not what Caitlin says.
That's not
That's
what
one of our
Caitlin
colleagues
said.
said. Exactly.
Making it up. All right, let's go to Judy calling us from Rhode Island. Hi, Judy. You're on the air. Welcome to Boston Public Radio.
Hello, Judy.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Perfectly.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to tell you this is a really great story, but it happened a while ago. I waitressed myself through college, and I was in Quincy, Mass. at the time. And two or three big buses from a Celtics game came through. There were only two waitresses on the floor at the time. And this is this big Howard Johnson's. I don't know if you remember it or not. But what happened was I went to deliver a person's meal, two people. I fell in the kitchen. Their food was all over the floor. I started laughing because poor people have been waiting for 45 minutes. I went back. I talked to them. I said, I'm really sorry. I'll comp your meal if you'll wait 45 minutes more. The kitchen has promised me that they're going to get it out. The kitchen got it out on time, and the people actually gave me a tip and thanked me for being so kind. And I didn't feel like I was kind at all. But I just wanted to share a funny story because it was like the most embarrassing thing of my life.
Wait, did you say these were Celtics?
Celtics fans?
Yeah.
Oh, fans.
Yeah.
Oh, fans. Okay, I'm
Celtics
sorry.
fans. And the manager that was on, he didn't realize that there was a game that night. So all these people are coming in, and there's only two of us on the floor. And we're like, oh, my God, what are we going to do?
You know, that, Judy, that brings the other point, too, is that sometimes people get mad at the wrong people in a restaurant. Like, you know, if you eat out a lot, you know when the kitchen is swamped or you know when people are understaffed.
It's true.
And it's like you either got to, you know, take your lumps and deal with it, but getting mad at, like, you know, you had an accident, Judy, but you got a good tip, right?
Jody, that was a nice story. Thank you for the cold. You know, we were talking about it. Was it Caitlin a minute ago that said her grandmother would steal the silverware? Jamie, our colleague here, said, only when I finally bought a house did we get rid of the Tufts dining room forks we've been using since 2007.
Largest expense in cafeterias is forks. Guarantee it. All right,
I'm shocked by that, by the way. I'm really surprised. Okay.
All right, Stephen, let's have you send us off here. Stephen from Medford, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hi, Stephen.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I've
got a couple of quick things.
Please.
One of the things that makes me crazy, and I'm offended for the waitstaff, is when the waitstaff is completely ignored. They'll deliver food, and nobody at the table even acknowledge they existed.
That's a great
And
one.
I go out of my way to make that sort of personal contact, eye contact, hello. The other thing is I had a friend who was working while her husband was in grad school, and she worked in a diner, and she hated it. And she gave me 2 weeks' notice, and for the last 2 weeks, she treated her customers the way she felt. Her tips doubled.
You know, there's actually
Wait,
I think it was this. I think NPR. I was listening to a podcast about a waitress. I think it was This American Life. Waitress got lousy tips. She was really nice to people. She did an experiment. She went in. She wasn't rude to them, but she wasn't as effusive and nice to them. And her tips went up ridiculously.
How do you explain that, Stephen? What's your quick analysis of that?
Well, I think what it is that the customer sees the wait staff treating him or her badly, and their hackles go up, they blow up their chest and say, well, I'm not that bad. Look at the tip I'm going to give you.
Well, that's an interesting analysis. Hey, Stephen, thanks. We appreciate your call, and there are millions more, and unfortunately, we don't have time to get to them. But once again, thank you, Kara Baskin, for an inspiration. Keep writing so we can keep talking.
Yes, and let's all stay as well behaved as we can. Okay, thanks for your calls and texts. You're listening to us as we have to say goodbye right now to NEPM, but make sure you stay tuned in there for the fabulous 413 starting at 3 this afternoon. We're going to continue here in Boston with Andrea Cabral, Paul Reville, and Ezekiel Emanuel. I'm Sue O'Connell, in for Marjorie Egan. He is Jim Browdy, and you are listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM. And we, of course, are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
It's not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues up ahead with Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio, right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Boston Children's Museum, featuring 100 Acre Wood, a Winnie the Pooh experience. Visitors can sort honey and acorns with Pooh Bear and Piglet, bounce with Roo and Tigger, or read one of Owl's favorite books. Tickets at bostonchildrensmuseum.org. An unlikely group of spies go behind enemy lines to turn the tide in America's fight for independence. Catch a new episode of Turn, Washington's Spies, tonight at 9 on GBH 44.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Braude, head on Hour 2 of BPR. Are AI-generated victim impact statements from deceased victims themselves another case of AI already going too far? We talked to former Public Safety Secretary Andrea Cabral about that, plus whether a modest pay raise for court-appointed criminal defense attorneys will end their work stoppage.
I'm Sue O'Connell in for Marjorie Egan. Then Trump's spending and tax bill has been a boon for school vouchers. Former Education Secretary Paul Reville explains what this means for public education in blue states like Massachusetts. Plus, our Two More Things segment next on BPR on 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. President Trump is expected to sign an executive order today that could open the door for 401k retirement plans to include alternative investments like real estate and even digital assets. NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben reports Trump and his family have a growing business interest in cryptocurrency.
The executive order instructs cabinet officials and financial regulators to determine the next steps to change regulations. The new types of assets, including private equity and cryptocurrency, are considered riskier than traditional 401k investments than stocks and bonds. Trump's family has a growing financial interest in cryptocurrency in particular. They started a digital assets business, World Liberty Financial, last year, and Trump's social media company also announced earlier this year they were raising billions to purchase Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin jumped after news of the executive order broke. Danielle Kurtzleben, NPR News.
While the Trump administration looks to reshape retirement savings, it's also taking a tough. A new round of tariffs kicked in today on major U.S. trading partners. NPR's Scott Horsley reports that could mean higher prices on everyday items, including coffee.
For the last 4 months, the U.S. has been charging a 10% tax on most of what we import. As of today, that's going to 15% on goods from Europe, Japan, South Korea. Even higher tax rates are taking effect on goods from countries like the Philippines, Switzerland, and South Africa. The tax on many Canadian goods jumped to 35% last week. And the president just imposed a 50% tax on goods from Brazil, which is the world's #1 coffee producer.
That's NPR's Scott Horsley reporting. The Israeli cabinet is expected to vote tonight on whether to expand the war in Gaza into a full reoccupation. NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reports that would mean sending ground troops into a small section of Gaza not under direct Israeli military control and where 2 million people have sought refuge.
Michael Milstein is head of the Palestinian Studies Forum at Tel Aviv University. He's also a former intelligence officer for the Israeli military. He says reoccupying Gaza is a terrible idea. First of all, many more civilians and soldiers would die, but Israel would also be responsible for civilian life.
Israel will have to invest dozens of billions in order to establish a new life in Gaza. I mean, apartments and hospitals and schools and water pipes and everything.
Neither the West nor Arab nations would contribute, he says, because that's a red line for them. And it would also ruin any prospect for diplomatic ties with countries like Saudi Arabia and could even threaten Israel's 1979 peace deal with Egypt, a bedrock of its security in the region. Eleanor Beardsley, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
This is NPR News in Washington.
Good afternoon from the GBH studios in Boston. I'm Soraya Wintersmith. Free speech advocates are urging a state commission to pause their scheduled vote today on a set of recommendations aimed at addressing anti-Semitism. The recommendations from the Massachusetts Special Commission on Combating Anti-Semitism include things like creating a statewide bias reporting program that explicitly includes anti-Semitism as a form of bias. Jonathan Feingold is a professor at BU and co-founder of Concerned Jewish Faculty, one of the groups calling for a vote delay.
Part of the concern is that the commission has excluded from public testimony viewpoints that would emphasize the danger in conflating criticism of Israel or advocacy for Palestinian human rights with anti-Semitism.
The commission is scheduled to meet and vote on recommendations this afternoon. And looking at local headlines, the Medford City Council has passed an ordinance that would divest city funding from companies that supply weapons, profit from fossil fuels or prisons, or engage in human rights violations. Bad night for the Red Sox last night. Their winning streak was snapped. They lost to the Royals 7-3. They play the Padres in San Diego tomorrow. But also tomorrow, Tom Brady is getting a statue. I love the video on the Patriots YouTube channel showing people guessing what it's going to look like. Most folks say he should be holding a football. It's mostly clear in 77 right now in Boston. You're listening to GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Charles Schwab, offering investors choices like full-service wealth management, advice, investing, and trading on Thinkorswim. Learn more at schwab.com. And from the Doris Duke Foundation.
Welcome to hour number 2 of BPR. Jim Browdy, NBC Boston's 10 whatever it is.
Whatever.
NBC 10
NBC
Boston.
10 Boston.
Thank you. I forgot about it for a second. Sue O'Connell, that's who the voice was, is in for Marjorie Egan. Streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're back at the library tomorrow. No library next week because no live shows next week. We're letting Marjorie's staff have a few days break. We're all taking a break, so there'll be best of shows, which are pretty good, by the way. So I hope you
They're
listen.
the best.
They're of.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. We're joined now via Zoom by Andrea Cabral. She's the former sheriff of Suffolk County, former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety. She, of course, joins us weekly when she's not filling in as host. Hello, Andrea Cabral.
It's the S in Boston and the possessive
yes.
for the personality. None of us can.
Yeah.
We have the
NBC
same problem
10
with
Boston's. Apparently it's difficult to say.
That is the problem.
Yeah. But just say, NBC Boston's. How's that?
10
Boston.
That
We'll
is
work
the
on it.
problem,
Let me get marketing on the phone and we'll get this straightened
Right
out. But
now,
you are
actually,
correct,
maybe.
Andrea Cabral. And let's talk about AI. I got to set this up just a little bit for our listeners because it's hard to sort of wrap your brain around this. A man was murdered. His name was Christopher Pelkey. It was in a road rage incident. And during the sentencing of his killer in May of this year, 2025, of course, as is usual, the person who committed the crime was found guilty. And during the sentencing, the family of Christopher Pelkey was asked to, give a victim impact statement. They were directed, as many are, to bring the victim to life so that everyone could see what this life was cut short. And Christopher Pelkey's sister, Stacy, put together an AI-generated video to use in the victim impact statement. Let's take a listen to what it sounded like.
I would like to make my own impact statement. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. It means a lot. I wish I could be with you all today. To Gabriel Horcasitas, the man who shot me. It is a shame we encountered each other that day in those circumstances. In another life, we probably could have been friends. I believe in forgiveness and in God who forgives. I always have, and I still do.
So I having never heard, of course, the victim's voice before, but having seen some of these programs and listened to some of these programs that are, you could make a phone call. There could be an Andrea Cabral AI phone call made, and it would take me a little bit to figure it out. What's your reaction to this usage of AI in a criminal court?
Okay, so just so people understand the context that I bring to this, I was an assistant district attorney for about 16 years, and I concentrated on domestic violence, sexual assault, and civil rights cases. So there was always a victim. I always had a victim in my cases. And victim impact statements and working with victim witness advocates to sort of shepherd victims through the process is a huge, huge part of what district attorneys, assistant district attorneys and district attorneys' offices do. It's very important to them. The purpose of a victim impact statement for any victim is to alert the court or enlighten the court before sentencing as to how the crime has, the impact that the crime has had on them or him or her. So I understand completely the family's desire to better personify the victim in this case. They've lost a loved one, and to sort of bring that home to the ultimate decider of how long the sentence will be. And not necessarily for the purpose of imposing a stricter sentence. The point is to make the victim's feelings known. Where I have an issue with it is that this statement has been created by people other than the victim. I've seen victim impacts. I've dealt with victims throughout a process in a criminal case where they have felt one way about sentencing almost right up until the moment of giving their impact statement. And they've been thinking about it, and suddenly their mind has changed. Either they want something more stringent in terms of sentencing, or they've reached a point of forgiveness and feel some empathy for the defendant and want the defendant to be treated more leniently. The point is that you don't know that until the person who is alive to give a victim impact statement gives it. And in this case, this is the family making their best effort. But putting those words in a deceased person's mouth based on what they believe this person, they believe this loved one would have felt. And that's not accurate. And courts prize accuracy. And I think that's the issue with doing this in a courtroom. Now, I know that also Jim Acosta did an interview with an AI-created
Parkland victim.
Avatar of a Parkland survivor. That's, I think, different.
Not survivor, Parkland victim.
Victim, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But this, in a courtroom, I think it's very, very, very different. And courts have rejected this when it's been entered into evidence. This is not evidence. This is post-conviction. This is for sentencing. But courts have rejected the use of AI-created things like this that defendants have sought to, or even in civil cases, plaintiffs and defendants have sought to put into evidence. So that's the issue that I have with it. It is not the actual victim speaking. It is a composite of what people close to the victim believe the victim would have said in a victim impact statement.
By the way, I think you're far more polite than I think it's outrageous. I think it is total. And the judge, I hope, because he was just trying to be respectful, this judge, Todd Lang, said, I feel about the quote testimony, I feel that was genuine. I mean, again, I'm hoping he's just being kind to the family. I think it is scandalous. And by the way, don't send text saying, well, you don't care about the victim.
Yeah.
Obviously, all of us care about the victim in the crime. It's just the question of whether or not this is just and even sane. And since you mentioned Jim Acosta, I wasn't going to play it. Jim Acosta, who I was a great admirer of at CNN, a lot of courage, confronted the president in a respectful but unflinching kind of way. He's asked by the father of this Parkland victim, the young man's name, who was the victim, Joaquin Oliver. The father said, I have this, I'd like you to play it. He died more than 7 years ago. The parents create the AI thing. And even worse than this, it's not as bad as being in a trial. What was worse is Acosta, who's a real journalist, referred to this as his interview with Joaquin. Here's a little bit of Acosta, then the AI avatar, and then Acosta again. Here it is.
Joaquin, I would like to know what your solution would be for gun violence.
Great question. I believe in a mix of stronger gun control laws, mental health support, and community engagement. We need to create safe spaces for conversations and connections, making sure everyone feels seen and heard. It's about building a culture of kindness and understanding. What do you think about that?
I think that's a great idea, Joaquin.
I don't even know what to say. I don't even. Well, you're an interviewer. What do you think?
Well, I mean, like our conversation with Jared Bowen the other day, again, this isn't news.
That was actually Jared Bowen. Right. That wasn't AI. It was him.
But this isn't Acosta, I hope, is not presenting it as a news thing.
He described it as an interview.
And when we talk about, what if they were to recreate a fictionalized or dramatic version of the Parkland shooting, and they wanted to take a composite of the victims or survivors, and then they had a character, that's fiction or fictionalized, and that's one thing. This is in a boundary which I'm not comfortable with, because it seems like in the courtroom, it's supposed to be accurate and real. And we have no idea what this victim, really thought or didn't think, even if he did express something as a middle schooler. So it's just bending, it's giving authority I don't think that the AI creations have earned as being authentic when they're not, and they're not being labeled, I think, correctly as a fictionalized version. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. What do you think about it? The Acosta thing, Andrea?
I agree with everything that you and Sue said. I also think, what we never think about in the moment is the slippery slope of this, where we get to the. We laughed about it. What did I call it? Yeah, Tuesday. On Tuesday when I was co-hosting, I can't remember what day it is. We said at some point it's just going to be bots talking to bots, AI talking to AI, and no one's going to ever know the difference, right? That's the problem with this. And it's also a problem with, this isn't, some podcast where they're, even that I would probably have a problem with, but some podcast where this is sort of a gimmicky thing that they're doing on a podcast. To Jim's point, this is a journalist portraying as an interview which one understands to be with a real person who can form thoughts in the moment with human emotions, a sentient being, and give answers that people can then analyze and react to. All of this AI creation is none of that. And I understand the family wanting to better personify the loss of their loved one and to bring all of that home. But I think what you always have to balance that against the potential harm that will come if this continues to be accepted and becomes the norm. And quite frankly, it doesn't justify it, and it is not the real person.
Yeah, I mean, I can see AI witnesses. I mean, these are the things that it opens the door for.
A guy tried to do that. A defendant tried to do that in a civil case. It was an employment dispute, and he sent an AI avatar. He's the defendant, right? He's the actual party being sued, and the judge said, no, that's unacceptable. But that's where we're
going. That's where we're going.
Okay, speaking of unacceptable, can we come back to Massachusetts? We had Jennifer O'Brien, who's one of the leaders of the so-called bar advocates, Mara Dolan, who's a bar advocate, also recently elected to the Governor's Council. Bar advocates, for those who haven't been paying attention, are private lawyers who volunteer to represent criminal defendants who are entitled by the Constitution to representation. We have a weird thing in the state. Public defenders who are full-time staff lawyers only represent 20% of the criminal defendants in the case. These bar advocates, as they're called, 80%. Well, bar advocates are currently paid $65 an hour in district court. And as the Globe has repeated in every story, in Maine and New York, they're paid more than twice as much, $150 an hour. New Hampshire, $125, roughly double. And Rhode Island, $112. The legislature, long after these bar advocates stopped representing clients and cases were dismissed, and other cases that weren't dismissed, defendants were released because there are requirements of representation at particular times, voted belatedly to raise the fee $10 an hour in the first year, $20 in the second hour, still leaving these bar advocates way, way behind in pay to their brothers and sisters in neighboring states. And at least those with whom I've spoken, admittedly only 3 or 4, every single one of the 3 or 4 have said, this is ridiculous. This is not even close to what's reasonable. Either we're not going to stop the work stoppage, or not going to do this kind of work at all anymore. What's your take on what the legislature and governor decided to do in an attempt to resolve this, Andrea Cabral?
Well, let's be honest. Part of this on the part of the legislature is a divide and conquer strategy, right? Because bar advocates are not unionized. They are contractors with the state. They don't get benefits. They don't get taxes taken out of the money that they're paid.
Correct.
They pay those taxes later on, and they have to, have all of the expenses that come with being bar advocates. So there will definitely, I'm sure there will be some people for whom it's going to be a necessity to go back because a large part of their practice is the bar advocacy, and they've still got bills to pay. And some of their other cases, either the money doesn't come in as regularly or in that quantity. So some people probably will go back. I think they're going to try to present a united front. I don't think that this is necessarily going to do it. And I think that they're well aware that if they settle for this, they will go another decade or two as they went before this raise came through with no money coming. I mean, once, I've explained this often on the show. It happens all the time with DAs, although district attorneys have a little bit more leeway in terms of what they pay their individual DAs out of their whole budget. You know that people are going to always want to do this job. There are always going to be new attorneys who want to get the trial experience. So you will be able to hire more people. And part of this deal is CPCS, the Committee for Public Counsel Services, gets to hire 40 additional lawyers who will start at much less pay than private lawyers will. And they'll fill in some of the ranks here as well. But that's always been an excuse. The fact that someone will always do the job has always been an excuse for not paying people what their work is worth. I think that the bar advocates have drawn a line in the sand. I don't think that this is going to get it. It will draw some of them back, but I don't think it will draw enough of them back. And I think they'll keep up the drumbeat to bring this pay scale up to par with other states.
Andrew, our governor is a lawyer. Many of our state lawmakers are lawyers. District attorneys absolutely understand how important this representation is. Why did this happen? Why did it go so long without a raise? And why are they nickel and diming something that's absolutely going to not solve the problem and just kick the can down the road just a little bit? They obviously must understand how important this is.
Oh, I'm sure that they do. I think it's a huge gamble on their part, and a lot of it is what I just said, which is, eventually they'll come back. Eventually we'll find enough people to do the job. That's really not a great way to govern constitutionally, in the hope that you will always get someone to provide that constitutional service. So I don't know. I think it was a huge oversight. I think that there were probably a number of competing interests. The issues with the shelter problem, the MBTA, the cost of the MBTA, those things, especially when they balloon, always come into play. But as we pointed out before, and there were stories about it in the Globe and in other publications, that didn't stop a lot of the earmarks that came out of the Senate and the House that went to individual districts. I know when you're a representative of a district, you're supposed to bring home some amount of bacon. But if you can find money for a gazebo, you can find more money for people who provide a constitutionally necessary service, and without whom, the entire system grinds to a halt.
One last thing, by the way, to underline your point about the wait another 10 years for another raise. The one thing I left out of the summary is part of what the legislature voted is language that makes it likely illegal for there to be a work stoppage in the future.
Yes,
the only reason they even got the $10 per year was because they stopped doing the representation. If in 2 years they say we need another $20 and they can't engage in a work stoppage, I'd say the odds of the legislature responding is roughly zero.
Right.
An excellent point. Yep.
So that's another one. We're talking to Andrea Cabral.
All right, Andrea, as many know, you ran a jail for quite a while. You've got some expertise in a number of places. And Ghislane Maxwell is continuing in the news. And one of the I don't know if it just keeps piling on how shocking this entire situation is, but she is being transferred to what, I hate using the term country club jail or prison because it's still prison, it's still a jail, but the Bryan Federal Prison Camp in Texas, which does, according to reports, look like a college campus, and it's called one of the nation's most lenient lockups for nonviolent women offenders. Maxwell has been transferred there even though it's against Federal Bureau of Prisons policy because of what she has been convicted of and how many years that she is serving. I mean, I know what your reaction will be, but what is going on here?
I was talking about this just a couple of hours ago with my sister, and obviously we both came to the same conclusions, and she said this, and it was what I was sort of planning on saying on the show, but she said it much better, so I'll say it the way she said it.
Yep. Thank you for citing her.
Ghislane Maxwell, and this is a country club. It is. Let there be no mistake about that, right? It looks like, for a reason, it looks like a college campus. Some of the other people who are currently being housed there, it's one of the Real Housewives is being housed there.
Jen Shaw's there.
Elizabeth Holmes.
She's there. I know everyone who's there. Right. Jen Shaw actually are starting a business, we think, inside it. But Jen Shaw is from Salt Lake City Housewives, and she ripped off elderly people with a pyramid scheme. And, of course, Holmes had an invention she didn't really make.
How are you not embarrassed by what you know, by the way? Go ahead. Okay,
no, it's outrageous that this even exists. But compare that to where people are being housed who... And she's a convicted sex trafficker. For decades, she did this. People who have not been arrested for a crime, let alone committed one, they are suspected of the civil infraction of being undocumented, but have yet to be found liable for being undocumented for that civil infraction. And not only being held in places that are hellholes, especially compared to this. Some have been spirited away to countries who have more notoriously bad prisons than we even have here. So if anybody doubts as to where the DOJ is at right now as being a subsidiary of the Trump organization, or the real reasons behind the disparate treatment between people that we decide are deserving of our ire and against whom we have a grievance, and it's largely based on who they are and where they come from and the color of the skin. You just need to look at this. They're really, I say this all the time, we run out of words. There are no words to describe how absolutely abhorrent and repugnant and hypocritical all of this is. But it is the reality that this is the way our system is currently working, because the entire system is compromised and has ceded its authority to one person in his administration. So that's why this is happening. They couldn't care less. When Congress sends a subpoena for all of these documents for the Epstein files and all this stuff and says, we need this so that Congress can provide better oversight for sex trafficking, and this is why all of these people need to come and give depositions. That, along with all of this, is utter nonsense. They're not providing oversight over the Trump administration on anything. They're just cherry picking what plays to their base and moving forward on that. So the fact that Maxwell has been spirited away to this college campus to serve out her 30-year sentence, and if you read the article, every single person that is quoted who has ever done anything in corrections says this is absolutely unprecedented, particularly for a sex offender and particularly for a sex trafficker. There is no precedent for this. The only reason she's being treated this way is because of who she is, what she knows, and what she looks like. So Congress is equally disingenuous and a pack of liars for trying to pretend that their interest in all of this has to do with their oversight as a branch of government over the executive. They provide none of that.
So essentially, Andrew, you're undecided how you feel about it. Maybe next week you can form an opinion on this
I'm going to call
issue.
Jen Shaw and get the inside.
I'm totally
I
with
am
you.
nothing if not unequivocal. Jim.
You are. That is a fine statement. Andrea, it's great to see you. Talk to you soon.
See you too.
Andrea Cabral, thanks so much.
Speaking with former Suffolk County Sheriff and former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety, Andrea Cabral. Coming up after this quick break, Back-to-back former secretaries. Up next, former Massachusetts Education Secretary Paul Reville. I'm Sue O'Connell. I'm sorry, Reville. I'm just filling in for Marjorie.
Apparently.
I'm Sue O'Connell in for Marjorie Egan, and he's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH and streaming on youtube.com/GBH News.
Your home for trusted local news. GBH 89.7.
The news you need from across the Commonwealth.
The latest from Boston,
Brockton, Brookline,
Lowell,
Lawrence, Worcester,
and Western Massachusetts. GBH News. Online at gbhnews.org. Streaming on the GBH app. And always on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And the Animation Block Party, dedicated to exhibiting independent, professional, and student-animated works for over 20 years. Presenting Animation for Kids Festival August 9th at the Simmons Theater at the New England Aquarium. Learn more at animationblock.com. And the Trustees, committed to helping the public get outside and connect with nature with concerts, guided walks, and historic house tours. Learn more at thetrustees.org.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan's off. I'm Jim Browdy. What do I say now? Where are you from?
I'm from NBC Boston.
Boston, but that's not really where you're from.
Well, I'm from NBC 10 Boston. We use the 10 because people still want a number, even though we're everywhere. Digital platforms, you know how it is, Jim.
Whatever, it's Sue O'Connell. Streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're back at the library tomorrow. Live music, former Judge Nancy Gertner, and more. No BPL shows next week because there are no live shows next week at all. We're all on vacation, but we'll have best ofs, which are pretty best of, actually. We're joined by Zoom by Paul Reville, former Massachusetts Education Secretary, former Secretary of Education for, did I say this? I did say it. And he's a professor at Harvard University's Graduate School of Education, where he also runs the Ed Redesign Lab. Hello there, Paul.
Hey, Jim. Hi, Sue.
Hi, good to see you. Good to see you in person. Attendance is important in many ways. And one of the ways that we're hearing, and it hasn't really recovered since the COVID recovery, is the attendance and absentee issue that's happening not just here in Boston or Massachusetts, but across the country. Here's what current Education Secretary Patrick Tutwiler said on this show last October when he was asked about the top priority for his term. Here's what he said.
I would say if I were to lift up one thing that we've got to get right away, that's getting kids back to school. Yeah. The chronic absenteeism rates still remain deeply concerning. We're not going to see the kinds of improvements in education unless kids are attending regularly.
So I have to reveal, I was a chronic absentee kid as in elementary school. I was absent so many times they finally kept me back in 6th grade, helped me reset, changed my life. And I'm hearing from some parents, they have decided that homeschooling might be better for their kids. The absenteeism has driven them to find different ways for them to attend school, but that is the minority. What's going on here, Paul? What's the problem and what are some solutions?
Well, as you point out, Sue, this has been a problem for a long time. It's one that sometimes goes under the radar because we're accustomed in schools to looking at average daily attendance, which is different than chronic absenteeism. Chronic absenteeism is a number of students who miss more than 10% of the school year by virtue of being absent. And that changes as the year goes on. Obviously, when you start the year, you've got a clean slate, but that number adds up. But school officials often don't keep track of that. And now we've had the crisis of COVID, which has resulted in a lot of alienation from schools. So students don't have the kinds of powerful relationships that draw them back to school. We've got many students who experience boredom with what they were doing in school. Some others who decided, they could do very well without school, or families who decided they could depend on the students to do other family tasks for them during that time. So we have now a real alienation from school going on nationwide, and you can see that not just in the absentee rate, but you can see it in the number of states that are enacting voucher programs and ways to let people exit the mainstream system. But the chronic absenteeism, I think, is critically important. We can reform schools all we want, finance schools to the best of our ability, but if the students aren't there, we obviously can't make progress with them. And schools alone can't solve this problem. This is a problem that involves families, it involves communities, it involves remedying some of the situations that get in the way of young people coming to school in the first place. For example, we've got a lot of young people working jobs until late at night, and therefore not getting enough sleep to be able to get up at 6 a.m. in the morning and get to high school by 7:30 and things of that nature. So there are a lot of complex problems that need to be resolved, but it's really important. And some states like Rhode Island are doing something about it that's dramatic, and I think we should take a look at that.
What are they doing?
Well, they put up a statewide dashboard that tracks it in a day-to-day way. So you can see not only what the daily attendance rate is, but how many students in the school are now classified as chronically absent. And then they've created, through a grant program that Governor McKee has put together, a set of learning centers and out-of-school opportunities that exist to help kids make up some of the time that's been lost for not being in school. So that's a step in the right direction to make the public aware. He also has a public relations campaign. You'll see billboards with various celebrities urging people to get back to school and things of that nature. So I think all of that's important. There are a lot of strategies that need to go into solving this problem.
Could you give us, either what are Secretary Tutwiler and Governor Healey doing, and what are one or two more strategies that you think we should employ here that have been successful elsewhere?
Well, I think one strategy that we promote a lot in the work that I do is something called success planning, where you have an adult within the school system or some kind of responsible navigator from the community who is responsible for connecting with each and every child. So every child has an advocate who follows them and connects with the family and is in touch with them and stays with them over a period of some years. So this kind of personalization, what draws kids back to school are relationships with peers or with people on the faculty or people coaching or leading clubs. And, our schools aren't really built for relationships. We have teachers seeing 125 at secondary school, 150 kids a week in short bits and bites of 45 minutes. They don't really get to know them. We have guidance counselors with 400 students. It's just too much to get to know any of them. And so building an environment that fosters relationships is going to be a big step. A second thing is, I think, highly motivating work that students are doing in school. I used to say when I was secretary, the biggest problem we had in our secondary schools in Massachusetts is boredom. We have a lot of kids who are not motivated because they don't see a connection between what they're learning and any kind of hopeful possible future that might give them a place in society and an opportunity to be to earn a living and move forward.
Let me just say, the navigator thing, we've discussed this with you before. I know you're a big advocate of that. It's clearly worked in the parts of healthcare where people are unable to work the system. I think it's every difficult government bureaucracy that we're not getting what people need. I think that idea is so central. Somebody who knows the system will work with you, will build a relationship with you. So I couldn't agree more. Before we leave the topic, this is a different kind of absenteeism. I just wanted your quick thoughts on this. Is, as I say, different. This is fewer school-age kids in Boston, and you have a view as to why some of those people are fleeing because of the schools and fleeing to suburban schools. What do you think is the issue there, Paul Reville?
Well, I think it's good that the discussion is ginning up about why this phenomenon is happening, why Boston is losing children. And one of the points of view that I haven't seen in the mix, which I'd like to put there, is just the nature of the school choice program. We have a kind of controlled choice program there, which we also have in Cambridge, Jim. You know that.
I do indeed.
And one of the effects of that is it means that when you buy a home in Boston, you don't really know where your child is going to go to school. You have to get into a lottery, and your child may have an hour or an hour and a quarter drive to a school that you wouldn't ever have chosen. And so you have no certainty when you buy your home about something that's really important. Parents look for homes. And if you go to the suburbs just a short distance away, if you buy a house in a particular neighborhood, they'll tell you where you're going to school.
It's one of the reasons we moved out of Boston when my daughter turned 4.
Because you wouldn't know, or because of the overall quality
No,
issue?
just the whole, where, life is complicated to get kids to school on time and having to drive. And remember, Boston is East Boston to West Roxbury to Hyde Park. It could take an hour and a half to get around.
So if you have choice, you have the resources to do what your folks did, Sue, or what you did, then you're going to, generally speaking, opt for that sort of certainty. And so I think this is behind what happens to a lot of people who choose to move out of the city. Not necessarily a reflection of what they feel about the Boston Public Schools, but what they need in terms of some certainty about where their children are going to go to school.
Talking to Paul Reville, former Secretary of Education in Massachusetts. He's now at Harvard. One of the things that Marjorie and I have failed to discuss about the budget and tax cut bill, the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, is the funding for school vouchers and the dilemma that a lot of blue state governors who often run against things like vouchers are going to face. Could you describe, first of all, lay out the facts as you can, and then talk about this dilemma that some governors are going to confront down the line here?
Well, it's a little bit complicated, and it's partly complicated because the regulations haven't been written, and the bill describes this program in very broad terms. But basically what it suggests is any U.S. taxpayer can get up to $1,700 tax credit. That's a direct $1 for $1 deduction from your whatever your tax bill is, by contributing to a nonprofit organization that will in turn give scholarships to people that they can use to go to private or parochial schools or for quote unquote education related expenses, which is most people think that will apply to books or transportation or maybe sports fees. So it could, conceivably, a public school kid could get some of that money. But for the most part, the intent is clearly to give people money to use toward private school tuition. Now, of course, all of this will depend on how many folks step up and make this $1,700 contribution or something less. States will determine, any taxpayer in the country can make the contribution and get the tax credit, but states will determine whether nonprofits can give scholarships within their state. And so states will have to make a determination on this, and there will be an argument relative to whether this is encouraging flight from the mainstream system by giving people a boost toward tuition in the private sector, or whether or not that money can be repurposed for the expenses associated with public education. And it's led to something that I think is illustrative of some larger problems within the Democratic Party, which is there are some splits within the party relative to how we respond to this. On the one hand, the Democrats for Education Reform, led by Jorge Elorza, who used to be mayor of Providence, have taken the position that this is a good thing, and the Democratic Party has lost touch with a lot of Black and Latino voters. They like this kind of complement or supplement to their education budgets. We should get on board with that. And then you have the more sort of union-oriented perspective, which is don't give anybody the opportunity to take money away from the mainstream system. And so there's a real split there between two different elements within the party that, sadly, I think is reflective of a whole bunch of splits that are going on within the party, which don't enable us to put up a solid front to deal with the challenges that we're dealing with from the Republican Party.
So if you were Secretary of Education, this happened when you were working for Deval Patrick, and Governor Patrick called you on the phone and said, "What should I do, Secretary of Education Reville?" What would you have said to him?
Well, number one, I think the wisest course here at the moment would be let's wait for the regulation, because when it comes to vouchers, the devil's in the details as to who can handle this money and what it can be used for. Now, the proponents, or at least those who push to get the bill through, have indicated there'll be a lot of ways in which this can support mainstream public school students. I'm somewhat skeptical of that, but the proof will be in the pudding, and when we get regulations out on it, I'd like to see that.
Well, by the way, before you continue, that clearly was not the goal of the sponsors of this thing, nor of Donald Trump, to help subsidize public school expenses.
No, I agree with that.
Okay.
And nor would it lead to the tax savings. A lot of the argument for this bill has been if we give money to people to go to private schools, and it's much less, incidentally, than what any private school costs. Yeah. We would save taxpayer dollars. But if they don't leave the public system and they still take the money, then that's costing. And this is incidentally is uncapped. So people can contribute to this, and an unlimited number of people can contribute. There are 130 million taxpayers who could contribute to this, and it could be a budget breaker. But I'd counsel the governor to wait and let's see on the details. But generally speaking, I think the Mayor Alorz's point is relevant, that we supplementing the budgets of a lot of inner city folk who haven't had choice, particularly in some of these blue states, is a worthy thing to think about how to do. Whether this is the right way to do it or not, I'm not sure, but I wouldn't just default automatically to the kind of union-based position that we can't do anything that will withdraw any money from the mainstream system. I always thought that our job isn't to preserve, when I was secretary, I would say my job isn't to preserve the existing status quo system, is to get the best money, the best return on investment that taxpayers are making in public education in Massachusetts. And if that's inside a municipally operated public school system, that's the way we should go. But if it leads us outside, we should follow in that direction and just make sure it's fair and transparent and accountable.
Well, except those unions would probably say the way to achieve your goal is to not drain money away from the public school system and into private schools, and that's how we'll make public schools even better. But we can have that debate another day when Marjorie's here so she can start yelling at me. We're talking to Paul Reville at Harvard, former Secretary of Education. Speaking of Harvard, do you have any idea what's going on with Harvard and Donald Trump?
I don't really have any inside information, I'm sorry to say, Jim, but I know it's turbulent times. There's a lot of rumor making and rumor mongering about this. And so, there've been ideas floated about a settlement that's coming, but that never seems to emanate from Harvard. It seems to emanate from other sources. And so I don't really know what's going on. I'm quite sure there's some consideration being given and talks going on relative to, is there a way to get to yes here? But it doesn't feel to me like it's right around the corner. But again, I don't speak for Harvard. I speak for myself, and I don't have any inside information.
Yeah, and one of the things, the New York Times reported the other day that Harvard was contemplating a $500 million payment to the federal government, 2.5 times what Columbia agreed to. Garber, the interim president, is that what his acting interim?
No.
He's the president now?
He's the president for 3 years.
I'm sorry. He's the president. He told the faculty that that $500 million figure is untrue. It seems to me that the game breaker and the thing we will look back upon as one of the worst moments in higher education history. I'm being my usual hyperbolic. Well, I don't think I am being hyperbolic. When Columbia, forget the payment, when Columbia agreed to this outside monitor thing, I really think it's the beginning of the end of higher education in this country. And it seems to me when they allowed that to happen, that becomes the floor from which Trump negotiates. And the pressure on the Harvards and others is to agree to some variation of that, which allows them to tell their angry constituents, well, we didn't agree to a monitor, we only agreed to X. But whatever it is a surrendering of some independence that I'm sure to you is central to high quality higher education. Is that a fair statement or no?
No, that's a fair statement. I mean, I think we're in the process of negotiating away a lot of things that, we've held dear and are important values. And then having out in the public debates over how much protection money should we pay.
Exactly what it is. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right out in the open. And what does 500 million or 50 million, for that matter, have to do with anti-Semitism, for example? Nothing. So we're just this is a power play, and I applaud the Harvard administration for resisting it, and I think they're going to continue to try and resist it, but at the same time be reasonable. There may be some solutions, and as I've said from the beginning, there are things that we could do much better at our university and at other universities. And this gives us a nudge to do some of those things, which would be well within the limits of our autonomy to make a decision to do that. But where it encroaches on our independence by a Republican administration that seems to be committed to the private sector, committed to state and local rights, it's just an outrageous overreach.
Well, also, I shouldn't have just cited the monitor. I don't want to belabor this because we talk about it so much, but the payment alone to me of any amount of money, as you say, what's that got to do? How does that address the alleged level of anti-Semitism that a guy who eats dinner with neo-Nazis allegedly is concerned about? That being Donald Trump. Is when you do that, you're doing it, at least in my opinion, for short-term gain. You're saying, well, I'll get all that research money that all of us agree is critical and it's horrible, but you're not thinking about the long term and what path it is leading higher education down. And it seems to me that some of these schools, leaders, have got to decide we are going to take a hit in the short run, which is going to be really painful, which is going to set back research, which is going to do damage to a lot of people's lives, keeping in view what the long-term implications of, as you say, I love that expression, paying protection money to the president of the United States, what the implications are,
Well, yeah, and it's easy to say that everybody ought to stand up, but I mean the threats, and Harvard's in a much better position, obviously, because we have a large endowment. And some of the schools that are not so well endowed, this is an existential threat. In other words, you can take damage up to a certain point, but past a certain point, it begins to just sort of eliminate you as a quality provider of higher education.
Yeah, but let me say what everybody else has said, and then I'll end this part of it, is then you pay the X, you agree to Y, you think you cut a deal for the greater good, and 6 months later, now that Trump knows you're weak, and you'll cut a deal with somebody when he has sort of the best example to me is the CBS 60 Minutes case, where they had no argument about Trump winning this case in court. It's an invitation to the bullies of the world to come back and ask for more. And Trump's history is that's the way he operates in any case.
Well, I think Harvard leaders are probably taking that into account.
I'm sure they are.
We now have a track record as we look at places like Columbia.
Nice to see you, Paul Reville.
Thank you, Paul.
Good to be with you.
Bye.
Paul is the former Secretary of Education for Massachusetts and a professor at Harvard University's Graduate School of Education, where he leads the Ed Redesign Lab. Coming up
Can I ask
after.
you a question?
Yes.
CNN is now advertising, as they do 24 hours a day, it's my station of choice, this special American Prince JFK Jr. this weekend. How much do you care about the American Prince JFK Jr.?
Oh, Jim, I don't have time to answer that question right now.
I knew that. Actually, as soon as I asked it, I knew there'd be a bad answer, and there was. Okay,
all right,
let's
but stay
move
tuned.
on.
We'll talk more about
She'll
it
be
soon.
watching,
All right.
let's face it.
Two more things is coming up next, so stay with us. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Come up on New Orleans native Big Frida has an instantly recognizable voice.
I'm Big Frida, the Queen Diva, you best believer.
She's known as the Queen of Bounce, but her next album is bringing her fans to church.
You know, when I said I'm doing a gospel album, they're like, holy moly,
I'm Ari Shapiro. Big Frida's pressing onward on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
To go to church.
Support for our programs comes from you. And Furniture Consignment Gallery in Burlington, Natick, Hanover, and Plymouth. Open during the mass sales tax holiday weekend, August 9th and 10th. Purchase reservations are available in-store or by phone through August 8th. FurnitureConsignment.com. And MIT Sloan Executive Education, helping professionals empower their careers and explore over 90 courses blending cutting-edge research with real-world application. More at executive.mit.edu.
Welcome back to BPR. Jim Browdy, Sue O'Connell sitting in for Marjorie back at the library tomorrow. All fall next week. The whole team is best of on the air. Time for two more things. And as always, Sue, well, not as always, when she's here, she will do one more thing. So take it away, Sue.
So, Jim, I like to be fair and balanced.
Oh,
and
I
whenever
know that.
I can or complimentary about our dear leader and bend the knee authentically. I want to talk a little bit about the Rose Garden overhaul in the $200 million ballroom that's being recreated and redone at the White House. I think if anyone has been to the White House, they know it's a bit of a dump. One thing I agree with President Trump about, I can understand why he's at Mar-a-Lago all the time. It's a little smelly. It's a little cramped. It doesn't really serve our nation the way it does. You can disagree about the Rose Garden and the, look at our Copley Square. We got rid of the grass there.
So far, we're not done yet.
But I just want to say that we should keep an open mind about the changes the president is making. Keep in mind he's getting outside income, so it might be the Chick-fil-A ballroom at the end.
I hope so.
But, other presidents have done this. It can be torn down and rebuilt, but I think we just need to let him build his ballroom, let Melania work on the Rose Garden, and just focus on other things that might have more permanent damage or changes to our democracy.
Wow, that was
How's
an incredible moment of something with you and Donald Trump.
What's on your mind?
Well, the political divide in this country is destroying it. Will we agree that's okay, fine. People don't just disagree with many people across the aisle. They don't even talk to people across the aisle. But there have been some we were discussing this morning, our whole team and Sue, though inspiring exceptions, and I'm going to give you a couple, during less fractured times, admittedly. Ronald Reagan and North Cambridge's Speaker of the House, that would be Tip O'Neill, had a really deep and good relationship, even though they were ideological, not quite opposites, but close to opposites. Another example was the odd relationship between Barack Obama and the usually red-faced John Boehner, who was the Speaker of the House. And speaking of the red-faced John Boehner, here's what Obama said about their relationship once, I think at the White House Press Correspondents' Dinner. Here it is. Okay, it's not working. What he said was, we have a lot in common. This is the only radio station where whatever. We have a lot in common. He is a person of color, although not a color that appears in the natural world. Thank you very much. It would have been a lot better had Barack Obama said it. Another great example, you may have come up with this, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and who? Antonin Scalia. They'd go to the opera, they'd have dinner,
they shared
whatever.
wine.
Okay, exactly. But the latest example is a little bit hard to understand. Now, Jamie Raskin, a constitutional scholar, congressman from Maryland, leader of the impeachment thing, he's a pretty incredible character, is he not?
He is indeed.
Well, he has a very deep relationship with a woman who, it turns out, brought her mother and 4 children over for New Year's Eve, and the person he had come over, do you know who that is? Lauren Boebert, the congressperson for Colorado, who's most famous for owning a bar named after a weapon, if I believe correctly, and for grabbing the crotch of her boyfriend or somebody when she went to a theater.
To see Beetlejuice.
To see Beetlejuice,
no less.
That's right,
yes.
in the movie. I mean, it's not illegal, but that's what she was doing.
Yes.
So in any case, and in all fairness, they did create a relationship when he had cancer, and she was very very understanding and supportive and that sort of thing. So I guess what I should do, particularly in light of your outreach to President Trump, I will celebrate their relationship.
Yes.
And I would just urge, I know I'm a little bit not well enough to say this, I would urge Congressman Raskin, the relationship is great, but if she ever invites you to go to the movies, you should probably just say no.
Do not go.
Agree?
Just say no to the movies or the theater or any dark space where you'll be sitting next to her.
I should have said that myself. Thank you very much. That's all I have to say.
Luckily, we're out of time for this segment. So coming up after the 1 o'clock news, columnist, physician, University of Pennsylvania oncologist, and bioethicist, Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel will join us. I'm Sue O'Connell. I'm in for Marjorie Egan. He is Jim Browdy, and you are listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Join GBH and wealth planning strategist Jerry Doyle for Peace of Mind for Modern Families. Doyle will share his knowledge on all stages of estate planning. Wednesday, August 20th. Learn more at gbh.org/events.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Rockland Trust Bank, committed to helping individuals and local businesses work towards their financial goals by providing financial advice and resources. More at rocklandtrust.com. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC. And Babson College. You can learn to lead with impact and become a driving force for change. Babson's virtual graduate admissions workshop is on August 27th. Registration at babson.edu/gradworkshop.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head of Hour 3 of BPR, University of Pennsylvania bioethicist and advisor to Presidents Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel on how Democrats should seize the opportunity not just to ultimately restore cuts to Medicaid, but to reform and improve it. For example, not forcing seniors to impoverish themselves to qualify for nursing home care.
And I'm Sue O'Connell in for Marjorie Egan. Then it's Marjorie's favorite day of the week, and I'm kind of shocked she's not here today. Am I the a-hole? Who's the bigger jerk? A stressed first-time father of twins who spends too much time hiding in the bathroom? Or the strung-out mother who turns off his Wi-Fi so he comes out to help with the kids? Weigh in next on BPR on 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. President Trump is calling for an unprecedented change to who is counted in the U.S. Census. NPR's Hansi Loang reports those figures influence elections for presidents and the House of Representatives.
Preparations for the 2030 census are already underway, but in a social media post, President Trump says he has instructed his administration to immediately begin work on a new census that excludes people living in the states without legal status. The 14th Amendment requires the, quote, whole number of persons in each state to be counted in the 2030 census numbers set to be used to determine each state's share of congressional seats. And the Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the final authority over the census. Decades ago, Congress passed a federal law allowing a mid-decade census in 2025, but the results cannot be used for redistributing House seats. Last month, Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia introduced a bill that tries to change that and calls for a new census and congressional redistricting before next year's midterm election. Hansi Loang, NPR News, Washington.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says he hopes to meet with President Trump next week, possibly in the United Arab Emirates. The announcement comes just ahead of a White House deadline for Moscow to show progress in ending the war in Ukraine. A face-to-face meeting could mark a key moment in Trump's continued push to broker a peace deal. Israeli lawmakers are expected to vote tonight on whether to fully take military control of the Gaza Strip. The prospect of escalating the war has deeply divided Israeli society, as NPR's Emily Fang reports from Tel Aviv.
Israel's chief of staff of the military, Lieutenant General Ayal Zamir, was quoted by Israel's military on X, the social media site, saying that debate is, quote, an inseparable part of the history of the Jewish people and a, quote, vital component of the military's culture. Zamir, the statement said, would share positions, quote, without fear, alluding to widespread reports in Israeli media that he disagrees strongly with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over the course of the war. Israeli media has been reporting that Netanyahu wants to ramp up military pressure on Hamas in Gaza, even as hundreds of former senior defense and intelligence officials have spoken up in opposition to continuing the war, because it potentially endangers 20 hostages who are still alive and held in Gaza. Emily Fang, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
Texas Senator John Cornyn says the FBI is stepping in to help track down Democratic lawmakers who fled the state. They left to avoid a vote on new redistricting maps, a plan pushed by President Trump to give Republicans more seats in the U.S. House. Cornyn accuses Democrats of dodging their constitutional duties. Democrats argue the maps are unfairly drawn to favor the GOP. The FBI declined to comment on any details. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon from the GBH studios in Boston. I'm Soraya Wintersmith. Boston is giving the owners of the Boston Legacy Football Club 6 more weeks to land financing for its part of the White Stadium redevelopment in Franklin Park. The Globe reports this hour Mayor Michelle Wu's administration had set an August 1st financing deadline, and the projected price tag has steadily increased. That makes the revamp a point of controversy in the city's mayoral race. Boston City Councilor Ed Flynn is calling for the city to declare a public safety and health emergency in the Mass and Cass area due to... And Jacob's Pillow has announced that they're canceling the rest of their summer dance festival following a tragic accident that left an employee dead last week. In sports, the Red Sox play the Padres in San Diego tomorrow. And also tomorrow, Tom Brady is getting a statue from the Patriots. And have you seen this video on the Patriots YouTube channel where people are guessing what the statue is going to look like?
Hopefully Tom Brady. That's good.
Huge. A big point up there. A let's go. I think, maybe 12 feet high.
Any ideas? No.
If you haven't seen it, the ending image of Brady on a horse with a Lombardi trophy is absolutely ridiculous. Go check that out for a laugh. It's mostly clear and 78 right now in Boston. The forecast says we're looking at clear and cool weather tonight with lows near 60. Boston Public Radio continues next.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive. Progressive Commercial Auto Insurance protects the vehicles that work to keep small businesses moving forward, including protection while running errands and other tasks. At progressivecommercial.com.
Welcome to the third hour of BPR. I am Jim Browdy. Marjorie Egan is off. NBC 10 Boston, Sue O'Connell is in. Hello again, Sue.
Good day, Jim.
Good day to you. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow. No library shows next week. In fact, no live shows next week. The whole staff is taking a summer vacation to relax or to do something.
Are you all going somewhere together?
Yes, we are. We're all going together.
Undisclosed
a very
location.
small location, yes. And we will be airing best ofs, which I think really are best ofs. We're now joined via Zoom by Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel, oncologist, bioethicist, author of over 15 books. I would argue, most importantly, the father of one of our wildly talented former colleagues, Gabrielle Emanuel, who left us for BUR and is now at NPR doing great work. In a July piece for The Bulwark, he wrote that, quote, almost 12 million people will lose Medicaid coverage, and an additional 5 million will lose insurance because of a new rule that ends subsidies for buying insurance in the marketplace. Together, he writes, these actions will reverse about 70% of the Affordable Care Act's covered gains. He then goes on to say the Democrats' goal should not just be to restore these cuts, but to fix, to reform, to make Medicare better. We'll talk to him about that. Maybe a little RFK Jr. thrown in. Dr. Emanuel, it's good to see you. Welcome back.
It's great to be back again.
Good to see you. So a number of folks, we were talking with Doris Kearns Goodwin yesterday, and we talked with Chuck Todd today and on his Chuck Toddcast. Both of them talked a bit about this electoral map, problem in Texas and across the country in general, and how this might be an opportunity for us to fix it and do it right, even though we are having a bit of a constitutional crisis around it. You sort of have the same view around what's happening with Medicaid. Can you lay out for us first what the existing pre-Trump, all of this, what existing problems you see with it are, and what some things lawmakers and Democrats might do to actually improve it and make it work better for Americans if they get the opportunity to do that?
Let's hold on the solutions first. Let's start with the problems as you see them, Doctor.
Oh, Sue, I think this is actually a generalized problem and not just for healthcare. I deal in healthcare and I can see it clearly in healthcare. But I think the fact that you referred to others talking about, the electoral system, but I think it would equally apply to housing, to taxes, and lots of education. And that is, we have institutions, and Medicaid, is 60 years old this year. And it grew up. Even when it was passed, it was far from ideal. It was this federalism, state, federal hybrid. It was different in each state. The benefits, the federal government set a minimum floor, but each state did something different. The eligibility criteria were wildly different among the states. It makes it impossible to share data. It makes it impossible to sort of benchmark yourself by states. When one person moves from state to state, they might not be tracked very well. And one consequence is a state could pay a managed care organization in one state, and the other state could pay that a different managed care organization. So there was a lot of waste there. The amount paid to doctors, historically very low, so created access problems for people. Not enough doctors took it, and you had to, even when doctors took it, they often had patients waiting longer. We have good data on that. Its main advantage as far as patients are concerned in the current era are the fact that low out-of-pocket expenses. They're not these thousands of dollars of deductible and $35, $40 of copays, although now President Trump has decided to put in $35 copays, which is going to be a problem for many people. So, and then we bolted on other programs. We bolted on long-term care, nursing home care, mainly paid through Medicaid in this country. We bolted on Medicare patients who are poor. Rather than bolster them through the Medicare program, we said, well, we'll make them we call it dual eligible. They get Medicare and they get Medicaid. And then you've got two programs which aren't well matched, trying to help one individual patient. It's a mess.
A regular person on our show is John Gruber, who wrote a great piece, head of the economics department at MIT, a couple of years ago in the New York Times, making the point that when people are railing against Medicaid because they're so concerned that poor people are entitled to anything in this country, they better read up a little bit and realize that one of the primary things Medicaid does is make sure that your mother or father or whomever who is not rolling in dough is able to live out their life in a decent nursing home, where a significant percentage who are in nursing homes have the feds through Medicaid paying for this thing. We are in a state, you may know this.
Jim, let's be clear. They can only get Medicaid once they spend down their assets. And that's one of the problems.
That's what I want to talk about. The most common commercial on commercial radio in Boston, I know you spent a lot of time here, Doctor, is a law firm saying, come to me, we're going to give you a trust so that in 5 years, you're not going to lose everything you spent your whole life trying to gain to protect. Could you talk about that for a couple of minutes, this notion that you have to self-impoverish to qualify for Medicaid for nursing home care?
Yeah, so this is one of those systems where we've created this overlap and not made a clear, here's how we're going to pay for long-term care for elderly patients. We've created this gaming opportunity for this law firm to make money by helping old people figure out how they can hive off some of their resources so that they don't have to spend them down, but they can give them to their kids. It's it's crazy. As my grandmother would say, it's Meshuggah making.
Mine too, by the way. She'd say the same thing. So go ahead.
And there are not many, but there are countries like, especially the Netherlands and Germany, who said long-term care is important, especially as the population ages. We need a separate system for financing it and separate rules. And one of our key rules is going to be, we're going to keep people in their house as long as possible, and we're going to support them. Their family takes care of them, we'll give the family money. They hire a caregiver, we're going to pay for that caregiver. Because institutional care, where they finally have to go to a place with bricks and mortar, like the Hebrew Rehab or some other long-term care facility in Boston, that's the most expensive way of living out your life. We don't have that kind of program in America. Again, while we're rethinking Medicaid, one of the things we need to do is, all right, how do we rethink that part of it? Not roll it into trying to give poor kids and poor families help with healthcare insurance, but as a separate program, thinking about what's the optimal program we want, and let's create that. And part of my thinking is, look, President Trump is going to devastate the Medicaid program and support for poor people getting health coverage. And we know, unfortunately, tragically, people will die as a result. People will get harmed as a result. But we as policy people have to say, all right, when we get power back, what are we going to do? Rebuild Medicaid? That would be a mistake. You're rebuilding a bad system. Let's think about what the optimal way to go is. Maybe we can't introduce all of it, but one of the things we have to do is what you said, Jim. We need a program to allow people who are aging a dignified way of aging and support it financially, not by mixing it in with, health insurance for young kids and families.
So what are some of the other things? I mean, you talked about a number of issues. I don't think you said in your piece, what are there, 56 different Medicaid programs counting the number of states and D.C. and the territories?
Yeah.
So what is the argument, again, other than the fact that Republicans like to, well, Democrats do too, that states should be able, within certain bounds, to make their own decisions on some things. What is an argument against uniformity?
There isn't one. Here's, we spend $1 trillion on administrative costs in America for our healthcare system. $1 trillion. Okay, if we saved that $1 trillion, let me give you a clue. It's $3,000 an American. We're not going to save all trillion, but you might save a quarter or a third of it, and that's still $1,000. One of our biggest expenses, right, is the fact that we have this overlapping system with different administrative costs and different administrative functions that just drives up the administration. Different billing rules, different coverage rules, advertisement at each year, different enrollment. We've made a morass of it, and it's not free. It's hidden, the costs. The costs are hidden in our premiums, but there's this huge administrative burden in the system as a result of this.
What else would you do?
One of the important things is to bring everyone, to as many people as possible together. We shouldn't have separate exchanges in Medicaid. They're the same insurance companies. They're doing the same thing. Put them together in one exchange. By the way, that makes it easy also to bring in all the uninsured so we can finally get universal coverage and stop with this bullshit about 10% of the population doesn't have insurance, and we pat ourselves on the back that's a great achievement. We can get to universal coverage. Every other high-income country has. You create one exchange. My second, and I think standardization is the second thing, and the third thing is to solve this problem of churn, we need to create long-term contracts. One of the problems we have in our system is people go from one insurance company to another, to Medicaid, back to the exchange, and that churn every year actually first costs a lot of administrative money, but secondly, it's one of the reasons insurance companies don't invest in prevention, because by the time they invest and you stay healthy and avoid some major problem, a heart attack or a cancer, right? they're not there to collect the benefits of it. And so why would they invest? And as a consequence, most estimates have that they invest about 2% of their premium dollar in prevention. If you extended your contract with them for 5 years, now, of course, if you have a baby or you move, you can move your insurance, you actually change their financial incentive. Suddenly, they're with you for 5 years, investing in your diabetes, investing in your hypertension, investing to make sure that you get your screening test. That suddenly becomes in their financial interest. And the whole game, why we don't have we change from a sick care system to more of a health care system and keeping you healthy. So cutting down on churn by creating these longer term contracts. Also, by the way, I would say, Jim, with a guaranteed premium, so you know what you're paying over the 5 years. These are the kinds of changes we need to have. And the last and, maybe the most important is change the financial incentives for the doctors and hospitals so that, doing another operation is not as valuable to them as keeping you healthy. And that, I think, is also something that we haven't thought about enough and changed the system enough.
Talking to Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel.
So in the spring, when we got news of former President Biden's diagnosis, you were on Morning Joe and talked about the way that White House doctors should or shouldn't be chosen. And this is not something unique, obviously, to President Biden. President Trump, the same conversations have been had. We can go through history and look at any number of presidents who had illnesses that were either not detected or not disclosed. And, often the pushback on this is, well, there's HIPAA and they're people and they're personal and they should be able to keep their information to themselves, ignoring the fact, of course, that there are hundreds of jobs in the United States where you need to have a physical, airline pilots, oil rig workers, movie stars. When they sign on to a big movie, they have to have a physical so that the insurance company will be able to know they'll show up and make the movie. What's your argument and what's your suggestion on how we can better have an assessment of our presidents when they are serving?
When a president has a personal physician, that personal physician, their obligation is to the president. The president is a unique person in the country, and he or she needs a different kind of health assessment. They are accountable to the country, not personally. And so my suggestion is that we create a panel of independent, objective physicians, maybe 3 is sort of my number, that do the assessment, including mini mental health status and other tests of the president, and report to the country objectively. And I think this is really important. And so, the main objection I've gotten is, well, everything's political. There's no way. Look, we can get out of that by saying to the medical professions, all right, we'll get one from the AMA, one from the American College of Physicians, one from the American Family Practice Academy. Okay, they are, their groups, their primary thing is getting highly qualified people to evaluate the president, and they're beholden, their clear obligation is not to the patient, to the country. And I think that's the key thing we need to have. And it will give all of us objective data. And I think this guessing game, was he tested for cancer or does he have cognitive impairment that we can detect? We got to stop that. This person is finger on the button, making judgments all the time, often without congressional oversight about committing American troops. We just saw that in Iran. All sorts of decisions that affect the country, nay, the world. And we need to know their physical and mental capacity. And this our argument, well, probably after Trump, we won't have older presidents. Let me remind people here, when Franklin Roosevelt had his stroke because of hypertension, he was 65, I think he was just under 65. JFK was in his 40s with lots and lots of medical problems. So many medical problems, he wasn't admitted to the Army in World War II until his father had to intervene to get him into the Army. And the country didn't really know about how serious they were. We have to have an independent assessment so the country understands the health status of their leader. It makes no sense.
Could we extend the cognitive evaluation to the Secretary of Health and Human Services under your proposal? Or thank you, Doctor. Doc, do you know RFK Jr.? Do you know Kennedy?
I have never met him, to the best of my knowledge.
So the latest action, I assume most people know, particularly if you're a local person, or mRNA exploded in Kendall Square in Cambridge, obviously around COVID, is $500 million in research money is being withdrawn on COVID-related things. But you're the oncologist. My understanding is one of the most promising routes around certain new cancer treatments is vaccines. And my understanding, please correct me when I'm wrong at any point here, is that of those possible cancer vaccines, mRNA technology is at the core. If I'm right about what I just said, are people like you worried that the next step from the Health and Human Services Secretariat is clamping down on anything that has to do with mRNA?
This is clearly a war on mRNA and vaccines combined, and it is extremely, extremely dangerous. Look, we don't know if the mRNA vaccines related to their being developed for against cancer are going to work. Okay? It's called research. That's why you do it, to see if it works and see if it doesn't work, or to see if you got to tweak it in new ways, and then it'll work. It's certainly promising and certainly worth exploring, and certainly could save a lot of lives if it turns out to be correct or we make adjustments. Is it going to cure people tomorrow? No. Is it a research project that in 4 or 5 years we're going to know a lot more, and whether it can work and for which cancers it can work, etc.? The answer to that is definitively yes. I should declare my conflict of interest here. A lot of that research is being done at the University of Pennsylvania, where I'm a professor. But it is super exciting in the sense, not just that I get a thrill out of the science, but it's super exciting because you could finally get a single vaccine that might prevent you from getting these horrible cancers or treating these cancers. And to shut it down on some, made up false claims about their danger and all is ridiculous. This is clearly not about the science. It's clearly not about the evidence around safety. It's clearly simply to get rid of things like mRNA, which for whatever reason, the administration and the secretary don't like. And there's no other explanation. And the reasons are pretty opaque. Although my suspicion is it has to do with Tony Fauci and the fact that he had something to do with developing the mRNA vaccines, which, by the way, everyone in the world, and especially the Chinese, think are incredibly marvelous. I like to say, Jim and Sue, after the Human Genome Project, which ended roughly in 2000 with President Clinton declaring that we've got the most of the map, there have been 5 enormous advances. There's been CRISPR, the ability to change a gene, and now we know a gene and save a baby from a terrible short life. There's been gene therapy, where you can inject genes into the eye and take a person who's blind and allow them to see. There's CAR T therapy, which changes T cells to allow them to attack cancer and take people who are literally on death's door, days away from dying, and cure them of their cancer. There's mRNA and now GLP-1s. mRNA is one of the 5 great triumphs over the last 25 years, and we are having a war on mRNA. Let me say one last thing. It wasn't in yesterday's announcement, but a few weeks ago, the secretary said he's canceling the contract with Moderna for $600 million over the creation of a influenza mRNA vaccine to prevent H5N1. Now, we don't know if we're going to have an H5N1 pandemic. We just don't know. It's hard to predict the future. It's impossible to predict the future. But creating a vaccine against H5N1 through mRNA that we could have in reserve in case a pandemic begins, that's called insurance. And at $600 million, it's less than $2 per American. That is like the cheapest insurance plan I've ever heard of. Remember, H5N1 killed between 50 and 100 million people worldwide from 1918 to 1922, right? It's cheap insurance. We need that kind of stuff, and he just canceled the contract. It's crazy. It's not for the public health.
Last thing from me, I want to unite the discussion we had with you about Medicaid, and you wrote in your piece, to borrow a phrase, repeal and replace, which obviously was used a couple of years ago by the other side. And then this mRNA thing. And I worry that people are listening and saying, well, Democrats getting back in power, they're going to reform Medicaid, make it better. Democrats get back in power, they're going to reauthorize the spending on mRNA. It's not that simple, is it? I mean, if there's this hiatus for 3 years, well, in the case of Medicaid cuts, they're going to start after the midterms. We have a couple years of millions of people losing health care, getting sicker, some dying, mRNA research coming to maybe not a total standstill, but close. It's not just like all of a sudden there's a Democratic president and a Democratic Congress, and we just fix these things. It's going to take ages, is it not?
Oh, for sure. Right. I mean, there's different kinds of infrastructure. One is infrastructure of labs. If you're going to close down labs and mothball, you're going to have to build those up. But the more important loss is human resources, brain power, focusing on a problem. People, in college or in high school saying, well, I'm not going into that career if I can't do the most cutting edge research, or I don't know if 1 year I'll get funded and next year it'll be all taken away. So you're creating huge uncertainty and pipeline problems. And there's people, going overseas. One of the great things about American biomedicine, and it's been the most productive for the last 50 years, has been drawing in people from all over the world, training them up, some of them staying and creating, their own labs or creating companies or what have you. Increasingly, people are going to be going back to their home countries where opportunities are, if not better, certainly just as good and more certain. And this isn't like, oh, I've got a broken, engine here, I'll just get a replacement. This is human resources take a long time, especially in high-tech areas, a long time to develop, educate, make independent, create relationships so you get new ideas. That can't be, once you destroy it, it takes time to build up. And by the way, look at Germany. At the start, in the 30s, right? I think it was 7 or 8 out of 10 of the world's best universities were in Germany, okay? Then Hitler came in, got rid of all the Jews, but also got rid of almost all of the great scientists and scholars at those universities. Not one of the German universities is in the top 20 in the world today.
Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel is an oncologist and bioethicist with the University of Pennsylvania. Coming up after this quick break, look, it's a classic BPR awkward topic transition, so stay with us. It's Thursday, which means it's Am I the A-hole Day? He enjoys that. Weigh in on this week's scenario after the break. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy, and you are listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, Governor Healey is moving to protect people seeking reproductive or gender-affirming care in Massachusetts from out-of-state investigations. And Big Frida is known as the Queen of Bounce from New Orleans, but her latest project is a gospel album. We'll talk about her spiritual turn and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH's All Things Considered.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And the Boston Speaker Series, continuing its 2025-2026 season at Symphony Hall with 7 evenings, featuring Tipping Point author Malcolm Gladwell, Dr. Anthony Fauci, Ken Burns, and former National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster. BostonSpeakers.org. And Comcast, offering Xfinity with internet and mobile plans to help stay connected at home and on the go. Restrictions apply. Xfinity Internet requires Xfinity Mobile. Actual speeds vary.
Welcome back to BPR. Jim Browdy, Sue O'Connell from NBC 10 Boston. Marjorie Egan has the day off. She has the week off, actually. We're streaming youtube.com/GBH News, back at the library tomorrow. Next week, no shows at the library, no live shows anywhere. It's the annual summer vacation for the BPR staff and us. What was my point? Oh, the best of shows are airing, so please continue to listen to what we've done. It's time for another edition of Marjorie's favorite segment, Am I the A-Hole?, where we take what we believe are real-life scenarios from Reddit or wherever they are and present them to you. This week, a new father of twins is accused by his wife of spending too much time in the bathroom avoiding his fatherly duties. Here's what she claims. Every time their twins need their diapers changed or it's feeding time, her partner, the guy, will remove himself from the situation, head to the bathroom, phone in hand, for upwards of half an hour or maybe even an hour. The man claims he has a medical condition that prevents him from doing his business. I hate that expression. Why do I use that? From doing what he does in a speedy manner. Didn't the wife call the doctor and the doctor said that's not really happening? That's not it. Okay. But his wife, in an act of vengeful spite, some people think, unplugs the house Wi-Fi after 15 minutes to sort of send him a message. In any case, the number is 877-301-8970. Who is the a-hole? Is it the wife unable to let the father of her children take a, let's call it a pause for the sake of a sanity, or is it the husband who decides to hide out so that he doesn't have to do what most decent people do vis-a-vis their kids? And since we don't want to get to it, be careful what you say about bathroom stuff. Bathroom is just where this happened. So we'll expand it. When you were the parent of a newborn, did you not have a place of respite? I'm not defending it, but is there a place? Did you say you hid out in the shower?
Yeah, no, I think every parent has tried to make the bathroom the sacred space where your child cannot get you, because you can go in there and just sit and do nothing.
How long were you in there?
Oh, I've been in there at least 35 minutes doing nothing for no reason. No reason. I mean, there's always something you can find to do in the bathroom. No
reason in the bathroom, but reason to avoid the non-bathroom activities.
Yes, that's why I'm here at work right now, to avoid being home.
877-301-8970. Who is the a-hole? The wife who turned off the Wi-Fi while the guy's in the bathroom. And the guy says he has a condition, and the medicine causes him to have to go to the bathroom for extra time. Or is it the husband who apparently can't deal with the responsibilities that come with being a parent?
Yes, twins they have. And we also should note, Jim, that she says that she started keeping track of this. This isn't just how she feels.
I missed that part.
So she said, yesterday was a week and a half since I started truly keeping track, and he, only twice in 10 days, not ditched me to go camp out in the bathroom and let me finish 80% of the childcare. So it's not just that he allegedly has a condition. It's that this condition rears its ugly head whenever a diaper has to be...
Rears its ugly head. That's beautiful.
You're welcome.
That was great.
Whenever a diaper needs to be changed. You stepped on my final line. Thank you. Yeah, see? Got to go to the bathroom. Got to go to the bathroom.
Oh, so you even knew you were doing that when you were doing that? Reared its ugly head and then you're going right to diapers?
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
I was setting it up.
That was
worked
brilliant,
all day on that, Jim, and you stepped all over it.
My sincere apologies. 877-301-8970. You know, it's hard to not say the guy is an a-hole for avoiding. That's another
Yeah, another
the
body
problem,
part. Yeah.
For ignoring his fatherly responsibilities. But there generally is one partner in a partnership around a parent who has a hard time. I'm not defending it. I'm saying this is the reality of dealing with the new responsibilities that come with the kids.
There's nothing quite like being two working parents, right? And one parent has to leave the house earlier than the other, which is before the child actually has to wake up. And as they're leaving the house, they say to you something like, "Oh, our daughter has 102 temperature. Let me know how things work out," and they leave.
Okay.
Right? I mean, these things happen. But I think it's the avoidance of your responsibilities and the lying and where do you hide out.
Well, we don't know that he's lying. He says he has a condition.
He's lying.
He's lying. Jeff in Andover says, I too am a tired father who likes to hide in the bathroom, but leaving your wife, the capital letters, with twins, dude, a-hole.
Yeah,
I have a feeling that's going to be the case. Let's show some sympathy for a guy who's obviously stressed out about that and does have a really serious condition that causes him to listen to the radio and watch YouTube video. We didn't say that, by the way. Apparently, while he's in there, he's watching YouTube videos. Exactly.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Carrie in the car. Carrie, welcome to Boston Public Radio.
Hello, Carrie in the car.
What do you think?
Hi. Thanks so much for taking my call. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We're glad to have you.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is actually my second time calling. So glad to talk to both of you. So my husband and I have 19-year-old twins. Actually, my daughter's spoken with you before, Jim, on the radio, which is during COVID, which is very exciting for her. Now she's in college.
Oh, that's great. Congrats.
But my husband stood up and did what he needed to do. I had a C-section, and I didn't know how grueling that would be. Yeah. Having C-sections, no one tells you what that recovery is like.
Right.
And then you learn real fast. It is really, really difficult. So for the first 4 weeks, I wasn't quite myself. And we did have a lot of help. My parents were always running up the highway to help us, and sometimes we had night nannies, but my husband did not hide in the bathroom, and he didn't hide with his video games. I think we're making people a little gentler, less backbones these days, and that's okay to a point, but your wife can't do it all. You got to figure it out. You got to go get some anti-anxiety medicine or a good psychologist. But you got to step up at some point because you cannot do it all alone.
I think that's going to be the majority viewpoint. Did you say, before you go, Carrie, did you say your parents ran down the highway to get to your house? Is that what you said?
Oh, my God. My parents were just so eager to help us in every way, the new grandchildren. So they would come up
Fabulous.
Whenever they were needed.
That's a beautiful story, and I think you're probably, as I say, representing the majority opinion. Carrie, nice to talk to you again. Say hi to the kid. Now she's in college. 877-301-8970 is the number.
Tim from Lowell has texted us saying, if the timing is as convenient as claimed, the husband's obviously the a-hole. As a side note, does turning off the Wi-Fi do anything significant? I would assume his phone would switch to data probably without even telling him. He probably doesn't even know she's turning off the Wi-Fi, but you never know, because sometimes it's capacity issues too. He might not get service in the bathroom. So apparently it's a message that she is able to send. I think they both need counseling, obviously.
Why do you think the bathroom, according to you, the bathroom is the escape route for almost everybody who's trying to avoid parental? Why the bathroom?
Because it's the only room in the house that you can go into
and not let anybody in.
And people generally do not want to come in because of what you're doing in there, and because they don't want to. Your kids don't want to see you naked. Let's just face it. That's also the other thing. And you can be in there for a very long time, and it would be impolite to ask what you were doing in there. So the bathroom is the sacred room in the house. There's the Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie is a great scene where they have a party and they take the door off the bathroom and they have to replace it with a different door. But the mother notices because she's been locking that door for 17 years and it isn't locking the same way.
Let me ask you a question. As somebody who's here quite regularly,
that's me.
We have been telling a story. We're going to get back to your calls in a second at 877. was the a-hole is our topic in this situation. There was a very painful incident for the staff of BPR, all of us, a couple of years ago when Jamie was allegedly locked in the bathroom here at GBH for hours. Have you heard about this?
Yes.
So we have operated from a position of great sympathy for his position because obviously he couldn't get out. It was horrible.
Yeah, scary.
Is it possible that he was pulling a variation on what this guy, that
Yes.
he just locked himself in?
There's a number of things you can do at work and at home to imply that you are participating but not actually doing it. And I might give this Jamie and this poor man in the bathroom some advice. For example, I had a boss back in the 80s who was always late, and our other bosses would be looking for her. So it was when you could smoke in the office. So I would light a cigarette and put it on her desk in the ashtray and also fill a coffee cup. So if they came in looking for her, they thought that she was in the office. So I think Jamie may not have been in the bathroom, actually. He might have been somewhere else, but has built this up so that we are feeling sympathetic for him.
Reed, Jamie just responded. We didn't ask for a response. Jamie just responded with a little note. Do you want to read that?
Yes.
So,
If you worked for you, Jim, you'd hide from you too.
that's hard.
It's
That's
true.
really. Thank you.
Ba-da-bum.
Thank you for the drum roll and everything.
9 p.m. show's totally different.
Thank you. And try the veal, I think. Anonymous texter said, I hid in the bathroom one time, but I tripped and fell. My wife refused to help me. I never did it again. And that there is.
And then there's the whole, what's the phrase when you do jobs poorly in order not to get asked again?
I don't know.
So that if you, like my dad was famous for.
Weaponized incompetence?
Yes, weaponized incompetence.
That's what Jamie said, yeah.
My dad was so bad at
He
doing.
said that from the bathroom, by the way. He just texted from the bathroom.
Doing little household, honey-do lists that he would do them poorly, so my mother would never ask him again. So maybe the a-hole is just waiting to get passed over.
Where do you want to go next? Sue
Let's go to
O'Connor?
Mary in the car. Hey, Mary.
Oh my God! Oh, this is.
Oh, look, it's right there.
No. We got a little different. Go ahead, Mary. Go ahead.
Oh.
Hi, Mary.
Mary. Oh gosh, no, Mary.
Oh, Mary has a.
Yes, we're going to hold on for Mary.
Yeah, don't go away. We're going to put you on hold. We hope you come back. We'll try you after Paul from Cohasset. Hi, Paul. Welcome.
Hi, Jim. Hey, listen.
Hi, Sue, too, by the way.
Yeah,
Remember her?
Yeah.
What, we on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. Well, one of us is. Yeah, go ahead. Thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Yeah, you, Jim, and I hung out a couple times at the BSO Gala a few years ago.
Oh, fabulous. Hi, Paul.
I'm the one who told you, you probably don't remember, I'm the one that told you look like my Uncle Willie back when he was alive.
Yeah, well, I thankfully it was when he was alive, as opposed to the alternative.
Exactly.
I remember it like it was yesterday, Paul. But thank you. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
sure. But at any rate, the guy who has the problem that makes him go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
No reason he couldn't wear diapers himself.
Good answer.
Let me tell you, it took you like 11 minutes to get to that. That's an excellent one, though.
Good payoff, Paul.
Paul, thank you. I hope to hear from you again soon, or see you at the BSO or whatever it is. Thank you very much. Let's hope Mary from in the car is there. Mary, you there this time?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. What's your take on this, please?
Weaponized incontinence.
Yeah, as opposed to weaponized incompetence. Thank
Weaponized
you.
incontinence.
Did you come up with that yourself, by the way?
Say that I'm by myself, but
no,
I have kids, and my husband actually stayed home to take care of him. So,
wow.
Did you ever hide? Did you ever hide in the bathroom, Mary? Where did you go hide when you got home?
I didn't. I was on duty.
Okay.
But he called, throw up on the shirt, a badge of honor. So he was a good guy.
That's a good one. We did get back to you. Weaponized incontinence. Thank you very much. An anonymous texter says, when our twins were born 26 years ago, my husband decided to build a very large shed.
You know what's funny when you're growing older, Jim, is I remember growing up and seeing mostly men sitting in folding chairs in their garages. Yeah. And I never understood it. And then I became a parent and I totally understand it now.
Do you have a folding chair or not?
I don't. I don't have a garage, but I'm in the bathroom or I'm here. That's where I am instead of parenting. That's what I do.
Or that other place, NBC 10 Boston.
Where else I get
exactly.
paid. All right, Will from Boston, what's your take on all of this?
Hello, Will.
Well, I just think that is very unfair. Somebody hiding in their bathroom instead of taking care of the children. I had three when I had my first when I was 21.
Yeah.
And then when I reached 25, I had three already. And I come from a family that in which men doesn't do much, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what I saved my marriage was that I was very engaged in every single thing after I came back from work. Sorry. Like there is no time to spend here until all these people go to sleep. Yeah. And still in that way, I have 3 grandchildren, and I'm very involved in their lives. It's like I got one grandchildren that is 6, 4, and 1. And believe me, there is a lot of work with the 1-year-old. Mm-hmm. And I think that he need a nanny only for him. And that's how we do it. You know, they come home every single day, and they want to eat, especially over the summer, and they don't want to eat out. They want to eat whatever we cook. You know, it's like the whole family is invested in these children, and I think that that's the way it should be.
Well, that was fabulous, and your spirit is also excellent. Came through in your voice. Thanks for sharing your perspective on this with us.
You know, the other issue here is that, maybe the husband has an issue around changing diapers for one reason or another, but he could approach and say, look, that's not my thing. Here's my thing. I'll take care of this.
I'll build a shed.
And you take care of that. I think, they need counseling.
So you've concluded that he doesn't have a condition.
I'm positive.
How do you know?
Not that he doesn't have a condition. I am just suspicious that his condition only displays itself, and he has symptoms of it when the wife needs him to change the twins' diapers. That is suspicious. That connection is suspicious. Yes.
I would have to agree that is.
And she kept track of it. She's got a spreadsheet. So I totally
spreadsheet. There you go.
There you go.
Let me tell you, you are a fount of incredible imagery. Oh, thank you. Let's go to Carrie in a Car. You're on BPR with Sue Economy, Jim Browdy. Hi.
Hello. I don't know who the asshole is.
A-hole.
We say a-hole.
Go ahead. Next.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I'm
That's
very
fine.
sorry.
That's okay. It's fine.
The a-hole is, I don't know who, other than me maybe, I had 3 under 3 at one point.
Oh, boy.
And I never changed a poopy diaper.
How did you do that?
Just the first.
What were you in the bathroom for like 5 years or what? Go ahead. It wasn't that funny, but go ahead.
I had my son, and he was, I don't know, a month and a half, 2 months old, and my wife was at work. It was the middle of the night, and it was summer. So I got up, I called my sister, and I took him over to my sister's house.
Oh, boy.
And the next day, I took a lot of abuse, but I stood my ground, and for some reason, my wife was sympathetic to me. Now she can't figure out why she was, but then she was.
So what was your ground? What ground were you standing? What grounds were you refusing to change? You didn't want to, but what grounds? I don't want to. Nobody wants to. No one's like, great, I'll change the explosive diarrhea diaper. Sign me up for 5. What were your grounds?
I never got that far. I just said I'm not going to. Pretty easy going and everything. But my neighbor next door said I could call her and she would take care of it for me. So she used to come over and change the diapers. And I mean, sometimes it was 1, 2, 3 in an hour where she had to keep coming back. But I just never changed the poopy diaper. It just worked out well for me.
Let me tell you, the fact that you're even willing to tell that story says a lot.
Yeah.
Carrie, congratulations, I think, on that.
I guess.
And thank you for an excellent call. We appreciate it.
We famously, Ruby's godfathers, my daughter, when she was under 12, took her for the afternoon and went to a family party and brought her back with a completely full diaper, trying to convince me that it just happened in the car on the way there. And I went, okay,
That's actually not a horrible move.
No.
What do you think about Carrie admitting his
the admission
behavior?
I'm okay with. He does seem rather proud of it, though.
He does.
And I'm wondering if he ended up marrying the next door neighbor who kept coming over to change the diapers. Because if I were the wife...
No, he said he's with the wife and she's...
Yeah, but I would be a little suspicious if...
why was she coming over?
Why was she coming over to change some of the kids?
Why didn't we ask her that one?
I don't know. I didn't want to put him on the spot.
Okay.
Rather talk about him behind his back, Jim.
Let's go to Ian in Hyannis. Welcome to the show there. How are you?
Hi. My use of lots of time in the bathroom was for sacred reading.
For who?
A great place to read.
Oh, to read.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
But that is an affirmative act. Were you there to avoid doing something or no?
No, I was there to read.
Oh, okay.
Avoiding certain things like mucking out the stable and things, but basically it was just reading.
Reading, okay.
Yes.
Well, reading is would you agree?
Fine.
Good
yes,
thing?
it's agreed. They
Very
don't
good
think it's a
thing.
good thing for you to do in there because you're not supposed to be in there that long.
I know, but I know what you're.
Yes.
I know why, and that is what we promised we
weren't
going to
do.
away
I'm
from.
sorry.
And you came very
All
close
right,
to
Ian.
doing it.
Thanks for calling, Ian.
Thanks for
Tony
Ian.
in Jamestown says, when I first had kids, he texts, I used to say to my wife, I'll babysit the kids. And I say this all the time. I'll babysit the kids tonight. And she would give me a look and dryly say, you don't babysit your own children.
That's a good one.
Yes, I was mean to someone who we were friends with on the air once on our show that we had, Broadside, where he said I was babysitting my kids. And I just inadvertently said, you parent your children. You don't babysit your children. And I felt bad.
Did you ever figure out why that show that we both did
Because
was
you
called
left.
that?
Because-
no. Why was it called that? Charlie Kravitz.
Broadside?
What was the point of that?
Wasn't that about the broadside of a newspaper?
I
That a
don't think so.
newspaper is
No.
there? That's a
Okay,
type
well,
of
sure, it was, but
tabloid.
no, it
okay,
wasn't
I don't know. We'll
actually.
call Charlie. We'll
I'm not
ask him.
calling him. You call him.
Okay, let's.
Okay, I
talk-
don't mean I want to talk to him, but he was our boss, and he named the show.
Yeah.
And no one knew.
No one
why
knows
he
what it
named
means.
No one knew then. No
It's
one
gone
knows now.
Okay.
Okay, Katie in Westford, welcome. Hi, you got a minute. Welcome. Hello.
Hi.
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 So I would say the guy in the bathroom's the a-hole.
Yeah.
The story I wanted to add was that my dad never changed a diaper when I was a kid. And when the grandkids came, my mom said, "It is your turn." And she never changed a diaper, and my dad did them all.
Well, that's
See?
pretty good.
That's pretty good. Payback's good like that.
That's really pretty good,
Yes.
actually. That's a
Yes.
wonderful story. Thank you, Katie.
All right, Katie, there's justice.
We can actually squeeze one more in, even though Jared just walked in. Mimi and Wellesley, you have 30 seconds. Go.
Thank you. Everybody's saying that the wife is sympathetic toward the wife.
Correct.
My guess is that this behavior has gone on prior to these babies
Very
being
good point.
born.
Yep.
And she ignored it.
Excellent.
She ignored him taking off whenever he didn't want to do something.
Exactly.
And now
It's her fault.
mad.
Exactly.
So I am not totally
Nope.
sympathetic toward her at all.
Right, because she's tolerated his bad behavior, so it's
Enabling.
her fault. That is an excellent point that needed to be made, and thank you for making it.
All right.
Mimi and Wellesley there. So you paying attention to this or not?
I was paying attention.
And do
yes.
you have an opinion?
Jared Bowen's here.
Oh, it's Jared Bowen.
I think
Yeah.
that she needs to just understand that this is not about dropping the kids off at the pool, that this is his doing his own thing. There's probably some weeping happening in there. And
He's crying.
Yeah.
I think she married the wrong guy.
It sounds
I
like
think
it.
that's clear.
But maybe talk about it. How about that?
Jared.
Forgot that. Now,
Torture him.
Jared, you're being expert on this because you're fairly friendly with the person who we've been speaking about. We believe that the history that we've all operated upon, that Jamie was actually locked in the bathroom as opposed to avoiding us or me in the bathroom. He was gone for hours, allegedly. And we've talked about it with great sympathy. There is a growing body of thinking that he was doing it to escape responsibility. Where are you full in this?
Yeah, there was some weeping going on. And that's, yeah.
You think he was hiding out?
I think he was hiding out, yeah.
Where
I
do
mean,
you hide out?
If you really try, I think you can get out of the bathroom.
That's a good point. You just open the door.
You just kind of open the door.
I had never
crying
even thought
now.
of that
He's
before. You
crying.
open the door.
It's like getting locked in the car.
Oh, look,
That's right, because you
there's
open
both
the door to
crying-
go in, and then you open the door to get out.
Right. There's crying and rocking happening
That is
right
a
now.
very, very good point.
All right, Jared, what's coming up on the Culture Show immediately following this show?
We're going to be talking to Michael Ansara, the longtime activist and organizer who has written the new memoir, The Hard Work of Hope, all about the protest and activist movement from 1960s and 70s moving forward. What's so
I'm
funny?
just laughing at Jamie is typing. They had 3 people from maintenance team to open the door, and they were all laughing at
Now,
him.
by the
So
way,
Jamie is continuing.
excuse me, they allegedly had 3 people.
I'm sorry.
Why don't you identify the 3 people by name, Jamie? Okay.
We want names and dates
fine.
of birth.
Yeah, exactly.
Christine Baranski is on the
Oh.
show. We talked about her yesterday. She's going to be on the show today talking about the Gilded Age, which is super fun and exciting.
Sue is jealous.
And we'll have an encore look at Van Gogh as that exhibition wraps up at the Museum of Fine Arts.
Now, by the way, this is the phoniest AI-created thing. Jamie allegedly took a photograph, which we unfortunately can't share with listeners, allegedly of 3 of our... Well, Nicole
right,
said it's real, taken by Zoe. Does anybody believe that?
Okay,
No,
there's one person laughing and 2 other people just looking on. So this is not
still crying. I can see the tears,
We're going to get to the bottom of this.
Bye.
Marjorie's going to be heartbroken.
Thanks for listening to another highbrow edition of BPR.
That's a very good point.
Listen to the podcast. Check out the TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow we're at the BPL. Come on down. We've got BU media researcher Joan Donovan for Press Play. Live music with rapper-producer JoiBeatz and rapper/educator Red Shaydez and retired federal judge. She will not be rapping, but she will be there. Maybe she will. Judge Nancy Gertner and Rhode Island filmmaker Stephen Smith. He's an Arctic expedition leader with Brown University polar oceanographer Chris Horvat. They've got a new PBS documentary, Beneath the Polar Sun. Our crew is Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, Maddie Gare ran the live stream today. The engineer is John the Claw Parker, and the person locked in the bathroom right now is Jamie Bologna. We'll see you tomorrow at the Boston Public Library, Jim.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I'm supposed to say I'm Jim Browder.
There you go. I'm Sue O'Connell. Stay tuned for the Culture Show with Jared Bowen, starting immediately after us right here on 89.7 GBH.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Gloucester Stage, presenting No Child. During a 6-week acting workshop with uninterested 10th graders, Ms. Sun learns as much as her students in this powerful solo performance. Now through August 23rd. GloucesterStage.com.